Chapter 2974 Qiuqiu has become a god. King Lu Ming revealed a look of joy. Qiuqiu, who had not moved for hundreds of years, finally moved. He knew that Qiuqiu had most likely refined the bronze it had devoured in the ancient god's world. After refining for a few hundred years, what realm could Qiuqiu's cultivation reach? Lu Ming was filled with anticipation. At this moment, the bangle that Qiuqiu had transformed into glowed and flew out, turning into a round metal ball that emitted powerful fluctuations. Qiuqiu was also startled. She came out of the room and looked at Qiuqiu curiously. "Young master, what's wrong?" Qiuqiu asked. "Qiuqiu is about to evolve." What a strong fluctuation. Lu Ming's expression changed slightly. The radiance emitted from Qiuqiu's body became more and more intense, and the energy fluctuations that permeated the air also became stronger and stronger. "Let's go, leave this place first," Lu Ming said. Then he waved his hand and kept Qiuqiu into a storage ring. He rose into the sky with Qiuqiu and flew out of the Wu family. Lu Ming was a guest brought back by the Wu family's third young master, Wu Zifeng. Naturally, no one stopped him. Lu Ming left the Wu family's residence smoothly. He sped up and found a remote place with no one around and let Qiuqiu out. Boom. After Qiuqiu was released, it exploded with a huge wave of energy. At the same time, boundless divine qi in the world gathered towards Qiuqiu. Fortunately, this was the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion. The divine qi here was extremely dense, even denser than low-grade divine crystals. It was endless. A large amount of divine qi was absorbed by Qiuqiu, and the aura that Qiuqiu emitted rose at an astonishing speed. 3rd level heavenly deity, 4th level heavenly deity, 5th level heavenly deity. Very soon he reached 9th level celestial deity. Lu Ming and Qiuqiu were both dumbfounded. They were shocked by the speed of improvement. This speed of improvement was even faster than a rocket. However, it did not stop when it reached the 9th level celestial deity. It continued to improve. In the next moment, the aura Qiuqiu emitted skyrocketed once again, breaking through the 9th level celestial deity realm and reaching the half-step divine king realm. However, this was still not the limit. He was still improving. Could it be that I can reach the divine king realm? Lu Ming was shocked and full of anticipation. After sleeping for a few hundred years, he was able to break through to the divine king realm from the 1st level heavenly god realm in a single day. This speed would probably scare people to death if it was spread out. However, Qiuqiu had refined that mysterious bronze, so anything was possible. Qiuqiu's body glowed with a resplendent bronze luster. Its body seemed to be nurturing a terrifying energy that was trying to break through to the divine king realm. Boom. Boom. A series of violent rumbles came from Qiuqiu's body. After a while, boom. An extremely terrifying aura burst out from Qiuqiu's body, and a powerful pressure spread out from Qiuqiu's body. Lu Ming and Qiuqiu could not help but be pushed back by the pressure. They only stopped after they were 10,000 meters away. The pressure of a divine king. Qiuqiu has really broken through. Lu Ming was overjoyed. Qiuqiu's strength was already very shocking. If it broke through to the divine king realm, it was unknown how powerful it would be. Now it was Lu Ming's first time in the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion. He did not know what kind of crisis he would face. Now that Qiuqiu had broken through, it would become a powerful helper for Lu Ming. The boundless energy between heaven and earth continued to gather towards Qiuqiu. Only after a few hours did Qiuqiu stop absorbing energy, and its aura also stabilized. 1st level Divine King Realm. Lu Ming could sense that Qiuqiu's cultivation was at the 1st level of the Divine King Realm. After it concealed its aura, eyes and a mouth appeared on Qiuqiu's round body. It looked at Lu Ming. Lu Ming, I've made a breakthrough to the Divine King Realm." "Ah." Qiuqiu opened its mouth and laughed heartily. It pounced toward Lu Ming and landed on his shoulder. "You can speak." Lu Ming smiled. "I can. They'll be able to do it once I break through to the God King Realm. Unfortunately, I'm only at the 1st level of the God King Realm." Qiuqiu even sighed. Lu Ming and Qiuqiu were speechless. He had only slept for a few hundred years and he had already reached the Divine King Realm. If other people knew about this, they would be infuriated to death. Lu Ming, why are you only at the 3rd level celestial deity realm? How do you cultivate?" Then Qiuqiu spoke again, almost causing Lu Ming to suffer internal injuries from anger. Lu Ming's eyelids twitched a few times. Yes, you're awesome. That's enough. In the future, if I encounter an opponent I can't beat, I'll rely on you. Don't worry, leave it to me. I feel like I have an endless amount of power." Qiuqiu shouted, its round body bouncing around in the air. Qiuqiu had broken through to the Divine King Realm. Lu Ming was in a good mood. He took out a large amount of precious metals for Qiu to eat. After Qiu saw these metals, its eyes lit up. It stretched out 2 tentacles, grabbed them and stuffed them into its mouth. It looked very happy. Qiu woke up and the following days became more lively. Soon the 10 days were up. On this day Lu Ming, Qiu, Wu Ming, and Wu Yu met up and left the Wu family for the Universal Camp. The Universal Camp was also on this planet, the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion, and was rather far away from the Wu family. The 4 of them quickly flew towards the Universal Camp. Lu Ming, wait. Just as they were flying over a mountain range, the Liang character mumbled, looking very anxious. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat and he immediately shouted, "Wait a moment." He pulled Xiao Yu's hand and stopped. "Brother Lu, what's wrong?" Seeing that Lu Ming had suddenly stopped, Wu Ming and Wu Yu also stopped and looked at Lu Ming in surprise. Lu Ming did not answer. He did not know what was going on. He was asking about the quantity formula. "Old Liang, what's going on?" Lu Ming asked. "I don't know the details, but I can sense that there's an abnormality in the energy in the area ahead," the quantity formula said. "Abnormal energy?" Lu Ming was puzzled. "That's right. The energy is abnormal. It's drawn but not released. It's very powerful and extremely similar to some kind of great array," the quantity formula said. The quantity formula did not understand formations, but it was extremely sensitive to energy. A great formation? Lu Ming frowned. There was actually a large formation in this barren mountain. Could there be some ruins in front? Lu Ming's imagination ran wild. There might be a large formation up ahead. Lu Ming said to Wu Yu and Wu Ming. "A formation? Could it be some ruins?" Wu Ming and Wu Yu also thought so. "I don't know, but this formation is very powerful. I'm afraid we can't break it. Let's note down the location and find an expert to break it in the future. Let's go around this place first," Lu Ming said. Wu Ming and Wu Yu nodded. This was a more secure method. Then, everyone detoured around this area and advanced in another direction. However, they had not flown far when a group of people surrounded Lu Ming and the other 3 in the middle of the barren mountain below. They were a group of people wearing long robes with blood-red edges. They had wooden expressions, but each of them exuded a cold killing intent. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2974 Killing Intent, Death Warrior, who are you? Wu Yu and Wu Ming's expressions changed drastically as they shouted out. However, these people in blood-rimmed robes didn't even look at Wu Ming and Wu Yu. Their expressions were still wooden. "You can actually sense the formation that we have set up and go around it? Impressive. However, you still have to die." One of the burly men spoke. Even as he spoke, his expression was still wooden and his voice was cold, as if there was no emotion at all. "So, that formation was set up by you guys." Lu Ming's gaze turned cold. It seemed that the other party had been waiting for them here for a long time and had set up a big formation here. Fortunately, the measure character had sensed an unusual energy fluctuation and thus avoided the big formation. Otherwise, once they walked into the big formation set up by others, it would be more likely to be a disaster. Who was the other party? Lu Ming thought of Qin Wuyo and the rest. In the Qin Heaven Starfield, Lu Ming had fought against Qin Wuyo and the others, suppressing a group of geniuses from the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion and offending a group of people. Those people had a reason to kill Lu Ming, but he didn't meet Qin Wuyo and the others when he came. How did they know that Lu Ming was here? There was also Wu Shui and the others he had met on Mount Modu. Those people had a reason to kill Lu Ming. However, they did not know that he had come to the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion. Could it be that him being followed? Lu Ming's heart suddenly moved as he thought of this possibility. This was the only way for the Wu family to get to the Universal Camp. If not for the fact that the other party had been paying attention to his whereabouts, how could they possibly have set up a formation here? Many thoughts flashed through Lu Ming's mind in an instant. However, the other party had already made their move. Kill? A saber appeared in the hands of the 3 dull-looking burly men. 2 rays of saber light slashed toward Lu Ming at the same time. Fast, extremely fast, and they all attacked at the same time without a single mistake. Their cooperation was flawless. This was clearly the result of many years of training. "If you want to kill my Wu family's friends, you'll have to get past us first." Wu Yu and Wu Ming shouted and attacked as well. The divine skills that the 2 of them cultivated were extremely special. As soon as they attacked, tens of thousands of horses galloped forward. Hundreds of divine horses stepped on the void, wanting to trample the enemy to death. However, as the blade light slashed, the mystical horses were shattered one by one. In an instant, the hundreds of mystical horses were all annihilated. Wu Ming and Wu Yu were forced back and spat out large mouthfuls of blood. Half-step Divine King, which family are you from? Wu Ming and Wu Yu shouted at the same time in shock. The two of them were 8th level heavenly gods, and the divine energy they controlled was undoubtedly divine-grade divine energy. However, the opponent's cultivation had reached the half-step Divine King realm and he completely suppressed them. Let's go down and find the answer. The two middle-aged men said coldly. They attacked again and charged at Lu Ming. The other men in long robes surrounded them to prevent Lu Ming and the rest from escaping. Lu Ming let out an ancient god's roar. His body expanded rapidly and turned into an ancient god body. Boom. Boom. The long spear shook and swept out. It swept across the opponent's blade light and exploded with 2 loud bangs. The two middle-aged men were directly sent flying. His strength is indeed astonishing. Let's attack together and end this battle quickly. A man in a long robe with blood-red edges shouted coldly. His figure flashed and he charged towards Lu Ming. The others also made their moves at the same time. One after another, blade lights were dazzling and full of killing intent. This was a killing blade. There were no unnecessary tricks, but it was fast, fierce, and powerful. You guys stay behind me. Lu Ming waved his hand and a stream of divine power enveloped Qiu Yu, Wu Ming, and Wu Yu. Then he shook his long spear and rays of spear radiance burst out. Dozens of huge spear shadows filled the void and stabbed in all directions. Rumbling sounds could be heard in the sky. There were a total of 12 men in blood-red robes. All of them were at the half-step Divine King realm and they were cultivating divine skills that could kill. When they worked together, their strength was terrifying. Even with Lu Ming's current abilities, it was difficult for him to fight. Buzz. A ray of saber light passed through Lu Ming's attack and slashed at his body, producing a sizzling sound and 4-colored sparks. A green scale was cut open and blood seeped out. The other party's attack was enough to break through Lu Ming's defense. Get lost, let's go. Lu Ming shouted as he cast the Divine Dragon Materialization art. The 7 9-clawed divine dragons charged wildly in one direction. At the same time, Lu Ming took a step forward and rushed in that direction as well. Bang! Bang! A series of collisions broke out. A few people in long robes with blood-red edges were pushed back by the 9-clawed divine dragon phenomenon. Lu Ming took the opportunity to break out of the encirclement. After breaking out of the encirclement, he protected Qiu Yu and the rest behind him. Lu Ming had no more reservations. If you want to kill me, then you can all stay here today. Lu Ming's eyes flickered with ruthlessness. He had rushed out of the encirclement not to escape but to make a better attack. Star explosion. A low growl came from Lu Ming's mouth. Then the divine power in Lu Ming's body surged wildly into the long spear. Buzz. A huge spear light burst out from the long spear and stabbed at the 12 men in blood-red robes. Go around it, attack. A man in a blood-red robe shouted coldly. The 12 men in blood-red robes used their strange identities and dodged the attack of the spear light. They then came from both sides of the spear light. Lu Ming's lips curled into a cold smile. How could he easily get around exploding star? Explode. Lu Ming muttered. Boom. The huge spear radiance suddenly exploded and turned into countless strong qi that swept in all directions. Like a stormy sea, it crushed the 12 men in blood-red robes. Not good. The expressions of the 12 men changed drastically as they frantically retreated. However, they were still hit by the powerful qi and coughed up blood. They were all heavily injured. Kill? Lu Ming took the opportunity to attack. However, at this moment, Lu Ming's expression changed drastically. He could feel a terrifying pressure coming down from the sky. Then an immense force came crashing down on Lu Ming. Lu Ming could not be bothered to kill the other party. He waved his spear and swept it towards the sky. Only then did he realize that there was also a saber flare slashing toward him from the sky. Boom. The saber ray slashed at the long spear. In an instant, Lu Ming's expression changed. The power of this saber ray was terrifyingly strong, as unfathomable as the ocean. Lu Ming trembled violently and his body retreated rapidly. The long spear in his hand trembled continuously and he almost lost his grip and flew out. God King. Lu Ming muttered and looked at the sky. In the sky, there was also a man in a long robe with blood-red edges. He looked to be in his 60s. He stepped on the void and descended from the sky. This man was a Divine King expert. The man in the blood-red robe looked at Lu Ming in surprise. When I received the news saying how monstrous a 4th-level celestial deity's combat strength is, I originally didn't believe it and let them give it a try. I didn't expect that your strength is even more terrifying than imagined. The other party sighed. This man in the blood-rimmed robe had more emotions than the other men. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2976 Killing a God King in Succession. Death Warriors, you are Death Warriors. Suddenly Wu Ming thought of something, and his expression turned extremely ugly. So what if you can? The Divine King man in the blood-red robe sneered. Which family do you belong to? We are the core disciples of the Wu family. Are you trying to start a war with the Wu family by killing us? Wu Yu shouted. If I kill all of you, who will know who killed you? The other party sneered. You guys. Wu Ming and Wu Yu's faces were pale with despair. The enemy had even sent out Divine King warriors. Today they would die for sure. 12 half-step Divine Kings and 1 Divine King. It's almost certain that they will be able to kill us heavenly gods. Since we are dead for sure, can you tell me who sent you? Lu Ming asked, pretending to be in despair. Kit, don't try to trick us. We won't tell you. A cold voice was heard. It did not come from the Divine King but from behind Lu Ming and the others. Lu Ming, Qiu Yu, Wu Ming, and Wu Yu's expressions changed as they hurriedly turned around. A man in a long robe with blood-red edges had appeared behind them. He was a skinny middle-aged man, but the aura that emanated from his body was extremely terrifying. God King. Yet another God King. The other party had actually sent out 2 God Kings. Wu Ming and Wu Yu had completely given up. The other party's actions were simply flawless, sending out 2 God Kings. Furthermore, they didn't appear all at once. First, one of them would be dispatched while the other would hide in the dark to check the situation. After confirming that there were no problems, the other God King would appear. 2 Divine Kings, 1 in front and 1 behind, surrounded them. There were also 12 half-step Divine Kings. Lu Ming and the rest were doomed with such a formation. Lu Ming also pretended to look miserable. He sighed and said, 2 God Kings. What a grand plan. Is there any more? Come out together. We have enough people to kill you all. The skinny middle-aged man behind said. Since we're dead for sure, can you tell me why you want to kill me? Is it for revenge or is it for something I have? Lu Ming asked again. He wanted to take the opportunity to get some clues from the other party. However, the 2 Divine King realm men remained expressionless and silent, not revealing any information. However, Lu Ming caught the expressions of the few half-step Divine Kings in the blood-rimmed robes. When Lu Ming asked this question, a few half-step Divine Kings in blood-red robes subconsciously glanced at the storage ring on Lu Ming's finger. He was not seeking revenge. He still wanted to take something from Lu Ming. Lu Ming made a judgment instantly. What was it? Lu Ming's mind was racing. Don't waste your breath on him. Let's complete the mission first. The skinny middle-aged man shouted from behind, exuding a terrifying killing intent. Bus. A terrifying saber light slashed toward Lu Ming. Qiu, I'll leave it to you. Lu Ming waved his hand and Qiu flew behind him. Just leave the 2 first-level Divine King realm fellows to me. Qiu's voice rang in Lu Ming's mind. Then its body swelled up and turned into a huge metal ball, charging forward. Thump. Qiu's saber light was shattered by Qiu's attack. It didn't stop and charged toward the skinny middle-aged man. The skinny middle-aged man was shocked. He didn't expect that his attack would be destroyed by a metal ball. Die. Qiu shouted loudly. Its huge body pressed down like a mountain. Get lost. The skinny middle-aged man reacted and slashed out with his saber. Thump. This blade struck Qiu's body, but it didn't split Qiu's body apart as he had expected. Instead, it was his own body that trembled violently and he retreated repeatedly, his arm numb. Kill. Qiu stretched out 2 tentacles, which turned into 2 battle sabers, and madly slashed toward the skinny middle-aged man. In an instant he had slashed out hundreds of times. The skinny middle-aged man fought back with all his might. Thump. The 2 of them collided continuously, but the skinny middle-aged man was completely outmatched. He blocked a few moves with all his might before Qiu slashed him horizontally. His body was cut in 2 and he almost died. Damn it, how is this possible? At this moment, the Divine King in front of Lu Ming seemed to have woken up from a dream and was shouting loudly. Quickly kill that brat. The skinny man was cut in half by Qiu, but he didn't die. He roared loudly at this moment. Die. The King of Gods in front of Lu Ming shouted and attacked. A terrifying saber light slashed at Lu Ming. Moon slaying. Lu Ming waved his long spear, exploding all his strength and slashing out. Thump. Lu Ming felt as if he had been hit by an archaic divine mountain. His body shook violently. His body, which was hundreds of meters tall, was forced to retreat. He felt the chi and blood in his body churning and he spat out a mouthful of blood. A divine king was much more powerful than a divine realm expert and even a half-step divine king. Lu Ming was no match for a divine king with his current cultivation base. The moment Lu Ming retreated, Qiuyu, Wu Ming, and Wu Yu were exposed to the other party. "I'll kill the three of you first." The other party shouted coldly and slashed out. A terrifying blood-red blade light slashed towards Qiuyu and the other two. If they were hit, they would definitely die with their cultivation. Ball, Lu Ming roared. "Leave it to me." Qiu opened its mouth, and then bolts of lightning spread out from its round body. A bolt of lightning as thick as an arm burst forth and charged toward the divine king in front of Lu Ming. The speed of the lightning was extremely fast. In a flash, it arrived first and bombarded the opponent's saber light. With a puff, the opponent's saber light was extinguished. The lightning did not stop and bombarded the opponent's body. Ah! A shrill scream was heard and then there was no more sound. When the lightning disappeared, all that could be seen was a charred corpse floating in the air. There was no sign of life at all. The next moment, the charred corpse fell to the ground. He was dead. A god king had died just like that. At this moment, the skinny man and the other men in blood-red robes had a drastic change in their expressions. To kill a god king with a single move, what kind of cultivation was this? "Let's go." The skinny middle-aged man shouted and half of his body retreated in an attempt to escape. "Did I let you go?" Qiu's voice rang out as it slashed out with its saber. This blade carried traces of lightning. The scrawny man let out a blood-curdling screech and followed in the footsteps of the previous god king, being struck into a charred corpse. Yet another god king had died. The 12 half-step divine king realm men in blood-red robes were shocked and ran away in all directions. "If you want to escape, then stay behind," Lu Ming shouted coldly. He cast the 9 heavenly Kuan Ping technique and chased after his opponent. At the same time, Qiu also chased after it. It opened its mouth and bolts of lightning shot out like an electric net. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2976 Full of doubts. The power of the lightning that Qiu spat out from its mouth was truly shocking. It charged forward like an electric net. The 3 men in blood-red robes were swept away, and their bodies turned into ashes. At the same time, Lu Ming brandished his long spear and shot out thousands of spear lights at the people in blood-red robes who were trying to escape, blocking their path. Then Qiu arrived and killed a few more people. At this moment, Wu Ming and Wu Yu were completely dumbfounded. This battle situation had turned around too quickly. Initially they had lost all hope. The enemy had sent 12 half-step divine kings and 2 divine kings. With such a lineup they were sure that they would die. He had never expected that Lu Ming would suddenly throw out a metal ball that was so powerful. In just a few moves he had finished off the 2 opposing divine kings. A divine king metallic life form. Wu Ming and Wu Yu muttered, their hearts still unable to calm down. "Qiu, leave him alive." At this moment, Lu Ming sent a voice transmission to Qiu. "All right." Qiu responded. Its 2 tentacles turned into 2 huge hammers and rushed to the head of a man in a long robe with blood-red edges. The hammers smashed down. Although the man in the blood-red robe tried his best to resist, how could he resist Qiu's power with his strength? Even divine kings of the same level couldn't resist Qiu's attack. Boom. The man in the blood-red robe was smashed to the ground like a meteorite, crushing a mountain. A huge pit appeared on the ground, and the man was lying in the pit, twitching and spitting out blood. He was half dead and could not move. Then Qiu charged at another man in a long robe with blood-colored edges. With Lu Ming's obstruction and Qiu's astonishing speed, the people in the long robes could not escape at all. Thump. Boom. One by one, Qiu hammered the remaining 6 men in blood-red robes to the ground. They were all embedded in the ground, half dead. 12 half-step divine kings and 2 divine kings, done. How is it? Lu Ming, amazing, right? Qiu's body shrunk and it flew in front of Lu Ming, looking like it was asking for credit. Amazing, absolutely amazing. Lu Ming was in awe. He was really in awe. Qiu's combat strength was becoming more and more amazing. Those who could reach the Divine King realm were all heaven's favorites with great strength. However, the two Divine Kings of the other side were completely suppressed by Qiuqiu and were unable to retaliate at all. Lu Ming speculated that Qiuqiu's strength was definitely able to contend with an ordinary second-stage Divine King. If it were to go all out, it might be able to compete with a third-stage Divine King. It should be known that it was much more difficult to fight above one's realm at the King God realm than at the Heavenly God realm, True God realm, and Ethereal God realm. Many people who were able to fight against those at a higher level than them were unable to do so once they reached the God King realm. After chatting with Qiuqiu for a while, Lu Ming's body transformed into the size of a normal person. He took a step forward and landed beside a man in a long robe with blood-red edges. "Tell me who sent you. If you tell me, I can spare your life," Lu Ming said. "If you want to kill me, then kill me. Don't even think about getting a single word out of me," the other party said coldly. "You're not afraid of death?" Lu Ming's voice was even colder. "If you want to kill, then kill." The other party was expressionless and showed no fear. Lu Ming was very straightforward. With a flick of his finger, a ray of spear light burst out and pierced the person's glabella, killing him. Then in a flash, he appeared beside the next man in the blood-red robe. "Speak, who sent you?" Lu Ming continued to ask. The man had seen everything that had happened, but there was no fear in his eyes. He said with a wooden expression, "If you want to kill me, then kill me. Don't even think about getting a single word out of my mouth." The answer was exactly the same as the previous person. "Do you think I can't do anything if you don't answer?" Lu Ming snorted coldly. Divine energy gushed out and he controlled the person. Then he cast a soul-searching technique to find the answer from the person's soul. However, when Lu Ming's spiritual consciousness approached the other party's soul suddenly glowed and emitted powerful fluctuations. "Not good." Lu Ming was shocked. He quickly withdrew his spiritual sense. The moment he withdrew his spiritual sense, the other party's head exploded like a watermelon with a bang. Self-destruct. Lu Ming's face was gloomy. A self-destruction restriction had been set up in the other party's soul. Once another person's soul got close, the other party's soul would self-destruct. "Lu Ming, it's no use. These are men of sacrifice trained by the great aristocratic families. There's a self-destruction restriction in their souls. It's impossible to find out any information by soul searching." At this moment, Wu Ming, Wu Yu and Qiuqiu flew over. Men of sacrifice trained by great families? Which great families train suicide soldiers? Lu Ming asked. "Some of the big aristocratic families in the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion have trained death warriors to carry out some shady missions in secret. Our Wu family has them too," Wu Ming said. "That's right, and these men of sacrifice are extremely well hidden. There's no way to tell which clan they belong to," Wang Chong said. Wu Yu replied. "Let's try again." Lu Ming was still unwilling to give up. He began interrogating the remaining 4 men in the blood-red robes. However, the other party did not say a word. If he were to search the soul, the other party's soul would explode. In the end, Lu Ming had no choice but to finish off the rest of the men in blood-red robes. What a pity. Lu Ming sighed softly. He had a feeling that these men of sacrifice were here for something on him. Lu Ming speculated that it was most likely the storage ring of the Night Demon Lord. If it's really for the Night Demon King's storage ring, it's very likely to be related to the 9 Absolute Divine Crystal being stolen. There might be clues in the Night Demon King's storage ring, so they want to take it back. Lu Ming kept thinking, but he had more doubts. He had already checked the Night Demon Lord's storage ring, but he had found nothing. Originally, he wanted to find out who had sent them to kill him. If he could find the person behind it, he might be able to find the person who had stolen the 9 Absolute Divine Crystal. Unfortunately, all the clues were gone. Looks like he'll have to be more careful in the future. This time it's all thanks to Qiuqiu. Lu Ming was secretly glad. He had to admit that he was quite lucky. Fortunately, Qiuqiu had woken up before this and its strength had greatly improved. Otherwise he would really be in danger. Lu Ming, let's hurry to the Universal Camp. There are many experts in the Universal Camp. No matter which organization it is, they wouldn't dare to send people to commit murder in the Universal Camp. Wu Ming said. "All right." Lu Ming nodded. Then the 4 of them set off for the Universal Camp. Not long after Lu Ming and the other 3 left, a few black-robed men appeared. When the black-robed men saw the corpses on the ground, they were dumbfounded. What's going on? What was going on? Even a God King was killed. That brat is definitely not that strong. One of the black-robed men roared. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Entering the Universal Camp, the two black-robed men were truly shocked by the scene in front of them. Could it be that the Wu family secretly sent experts to protect them? The other black-robed man guessed. Yes, that must be the case. That damned Wu family. One of the black-robed men roared. They thought that the Wu family had sent an expert to protect Lu Ming and the rest in secret. That was why the men of sacrifice they had sent were all annihilated. It's too late to continue sending experts to kill them. What should we do? It'll be hard to make a move once they enter the Universal Camp. A black-robed man said. We can only report the situation to the higher-ups and ask for his lord's decision. However, even if he enters the Universal Camp, don't think that he's safe. Let's go. With a flash, the black-robed men disappeared without a trace. Lu Ming and the rest were even more careful along the way. Fortunately, they did not encounter any danger. Not long after, they finally arrived at the Universal Camp. This is the Universal Camp? Lu Ming looked at the barren land in front of him and was somewhat stunned. This is all an illusion. There's a formation in front of us. Let's continue. Wu Ming said. The four of them continued forward and stepped into the barren land. At this moment, the space around Lu Ming and the rest suddenly rippled. Then two white-haired elders suddenly appeared. This is the Star Sky Camp. Why have four little kids come here? An old man said. Two seniors were here to join the Universal Camp. Wu Ming bowed respectfully. Oh, do you have any proof? The old man who spoke earlier continued. Senior, please take a look. Then Lu Ming and the other three took out the Demon King and Demon Master tokens. One of the elders waved his hand, and the tokens in the four people's hands were collected. After carefully identifying them, he said, It's the proof for one of the assessments. Congratulations on joining the Universal Camp. With that, he waved his hand and space fluctuated. Then a door of light appeared out of thin air. Go in. The two old men waved their hands. Many thanks, Senior. Lu Ming and the other three cupped their fists and stepped into the light door. After stepping through the door of light, Lu Ming and the rest arrived at a square. What a dense divine qi. As soon as he entered, Lu Ming could feel that the divine qi here was much stronger than outside. Then Lu Ming sized him up. There were already many people gathered in the square. At a glance, there were a few hundred people. It seems like we're late. The others are already here. Wuxia said. It was obvious that these people were the same as Lu Ming and the rest. They were newcomers who had just joined the Universal Camp. It's them? Lu Ming swept his gaze and saw some familiar faces. For example, the blood-robed young man Wuxia, and the others he had met on Magic City Mountain. Kid, it's you. Wuxia and the rest also saw Lu Ming and looked at him with unfriendly eyes. Haha, we're really fated to meet here again. Lu Ming smiled. Hee, it's fate. Kid, we'll see what happens next. Wuxia's senior brother, the blood-soaked youth, said coldly. You're still lacking. Lu Ming said in disdain. Arrogant. Wuxia's senior brother shouted coldly, his eyes filled with killing intent. He could not fight here and he was indeed not Lu Ming's match. However, this was the Universal Camp and many of his senior and junior brothers were in the Universal Camp. He would definitely teach Lu Ming a lesson in the future. Lu Ming smiled faintly and could not be bothered with these people. He walked to the side with Qiu Yu, Wu Ming, Wu Yu and the rest and waited quietly. Another hour passed and a dozen more people arrived. At this time, a shadow flashed in the sky, and a burly man in linen clothes appeared. Welcome to the Universal Unit. Now follow me, I'll arrange your accommodation. The burly man said. He'll have to trouble, Senior. Some people cupped their fists. Hee hee. The burly man laughed meaningfully, then turned around and left, followed by the others. After flying past the square, a huge mountain appeared in front of them. This peak covered a vast area and was very high, at least hundreds of thousands of feet high. From a distance, one could see many buildings built on the peak. In the distance, the burly man landed on the ground, followed by everyone else. With that mountain as the center, 100,000 miles around it is the core area of the Universal Camp. In the future, all of you will be cultivating and resting within that area. The burly man said. Yes. Many people nodded. Also, let me tell you. All new members are not allowed to fly in that area. You can only walk. Do you understand? The burly man said. You can't fly? Could it be that there's a flight prohibiting formation there? Someone asked. No, there's no space ceiling formation inside. Even a hollow spirit realm cultivator can fly freely. However, no flying is allowed. That's the rule. At this point, the burly man paused for a moment and sneered, "Whoever breaks the rules will be immediately expelled from the universal camp and will never be hired again." Expelled from the universal camp forever? Many people's expressions changed. There was a rule in the Great Void Holy Dynasty that if one wanted to enter the core grounds of the Great Void Holy Dynasty to cultivate, one must be recommended by the universal camp before one could enter. In the future, if he wanted to climb up and obtain status and fame in the Great Void Holy Dynasty, he had to go through this step. If they were expelled from the universal camp, they would lose the opportunity to cultivate in the core grounds of the Great Void Holy Dynasty. Not only that, even if their cultivations were higher in the future, it would be difficult for them to gain any reputation in the Great Void Holy Dynasty. It wasn't easy for them to join the Star Sky camp, so they definitely wouldn't allow themselves to be expelled. He couldn't fly. Many people firmly remembered this in their hearts. "All right, follow me." After the burly man finished speaking, he strode forward. Although they couldn't fly and could only walk on foot, they were still as fast as lightning even on foot with their cultivation. After a while, they entered the range of 100,000 miles from the mountain. The closer they got to the peak, the denser the divine chi was. There was even a strange fluctuation in the space that could clear one's mind and active thoughts. "I feel like I can comprehend divine skills and cultivate secret techniques much faster here." Me too. It said that the mountain peak is called Star Peak. At the top of Star Peak, there's a supreme treasure that is constantly emitting a strange fluctuation. Under the influence of this fluctuation, one's perception will become much stronger. It's true. Some people were discussing in low voices, their faces filled with excitement. "I hope you can still laugh after this." The burly man chuckled. "What do you mean?" Many of them looked at each other in dismay after hearing the burly man's words. The burly man didn't answer and continued to move forward. Soon they were about to reach the foot of the mountain. Bus. And NBSP whoosh. At this moment there was a sound above their heads. A few young men whizzed past them. "There's a newcomer. Time really flies." The few young men chatted. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 2978 Stinky residents looking at the few young men flying above them, many people were confused. "Senior, how can they fly?" A young man asked curiously. "They can fly because they live on it." The burly man pointed at the building on the mountain peak. Starting from the middle of the mountain there were a few buildings. There were grand palaces and elegant courtyards. "Live on top of that? What do you mean by that? Don't we live up there?" Many young men were puzzled. "Correct. You indeed don't live there because you don't have the qualifications." The burly man said. "Not qualified? Where are we going to stay?" Someone asked. "Follow me." The burly man did not answer. He smiled and continued forward. Everyone was curious and followed closely behind. After they had crossed a few small hills, a foul smell hit them in the face. "So stinky." Some of the women were frowning and looked disgusted. "All of you will be staying there." The burly man pointed to the front. Everyone looked over and saw a wide area in front of them. There were many small houses which were very simple and crude. They were only casually built with wood. Most importantly, around these wooden houses, there was a farm raising many strange desolate beasts. The source of the stench was the mixture of the waste and urine of these desolate beasts. "What? We're living in this kind of place? Impossible, I'm not staying." "Is this kind of trash for people to live in?" A few of the women screamed. "It's fine if you don't want to stay, but get lost," the burly man said coldly. The few women shut up, but their eyes turned, obviously thinking of a solution. "I'm telling you, you have to stay here even if you don't want to. You can't stay anywhere else. These are the rules. If you break them, you'll be expelled from the universal camp forever," the burly man said coldly. Some of the women's faces were pale, and some of the men were frowning. Some people did have such an idea just now and simply gave up. It would be the same if they found a clean place to cultivate. However, he had to stay there. This was the rule. Those who were able to join the universal camp were almost all top geniuses who had mastered divine-grade divine power. In the Qintian Star region they were people at the divine sun level. 90% of such people came from big forces or big families. When had they ever lived in such a place? Many of them furrowed their brows. They didn't expect that they would have to stay in such a place when they came to the universal camp. Furthermore, none of the people who had joined the universal camp in the past had ever mentioned that there was such a rule in the universal camp. "Also, I'm warning you all. The rules of the universal camp must never be leaked out. If you do, you'll be expelled from the universal camp and never allowed to enter again, the burly man said. Many young women's faces were pale, and many people's mouths were bitter. Senior, how do I get to live up there? Someone pointed at the buildings on the mountain peak and asked. The buildings here were at the foot of the mountain. When compared to the buildings on the mountainside, they were like heaven and earth. If you want to live there, it's very simple. You have to challenge them. As long as you can defeat the people above, you can take over and cultivate there. At the same time, you can fly freely in this area, the burly man said. This made many people's eyes burn with passion. As long as he defeated the person living above him, he would be able to replace him. It was obvious that the buildings on the mountain peak were not only much better than at the foot of the mountain, but they were also closer to the top of the mountain. The influence of the treasures at the top of the star peak would be greater, and one's comprehension ability would be better. Furthermore, it could even fly. They could obviously fly, but they couldn't. They could only watch others looking down at them from above. That kind of feeling was extremely sullen. I'm going to challenge him. A young woman shouted, and a powerful aura emanated from her body. 8th level celestial deity. This lady had a cultivation of the 8th level heavenly deity realm and was in control of the divine grade divine power. If she was placed in the Qin Heaven Star region, she would be an unrivaled genius. However, it was very normal here. Everyone's faces were calm and they were not surprised at all. In the 9 absolute heavenly king manner, the basic condition to be called a heaven's favorite was to control divine grade divine power. Those who did not control divine grade divine power could not be called geniuses. I'm also going to challenge him. I want one too. Who's going to live in this damn place? People kept shouting. These people were all geniuses in the outside world. They were 1 in a billion and were full of confidence in themselves. You can't challenge me now. You have to stay in those houses for 7 days. After 7 days you can challenge me, the burly man said coldly. What? Do I have to stay for 7 days? What kind of rule is this? No, I won't stay there. Senior, can you be lenient? In 7 days I'll challenge the higher floors and stay there. Many people were wailing. You don't have to stay? Sure, but please go back and stay in your palace courtyard. The burly man said indifferently and then stepped forward. Those who were wailing heaved a long sigh. They could only bear with it for now. Cut the crap and follow me. Well, each choose a room and complete it within the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. If you're not done after that, I'll personally send you home, the burly man said. Everyone sighed and could only follow him to choose a room. Some of them wanted to choose the rooms that were further away from the farm and had a lighter smell, but they were disappointed. These rooms were built right in the middle of the farm and they were all identical. Every single one of them was filled with a terrible stench. Chiyue, are you used to this? Lu Ming looked at Chiyue. Young master, don't worry. It's not like Chiyue hasn't suffered before. Chiyue smiled. Okay, then pick one. 7 days later, young master will bring you there. Lu Ming smiled. After that, Lu Ming, Chiyue, Wu Ming, Wu Yu and the others all picked a room. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, everyone found their rooms and settled down. The burly man chuckled and left. Lu Ming walked into the room. The room was very simple. There was only a bed and a wooden table. In the room there was a foul smell. Even Lu Ming could not help but frown. Exhaling, Lu Ming sat cross-legged and cultivated in silence. 7 days would pass by very quickly, so it didn't matter anymore. However, even if he could bear it, some people couldn't. It hadn't even been a day and someone was already roaring. Damn it, what the hell is this place? I'm going to kill my way up in 7 days. I also want to kill my way up. Some people roared, their voices reverberating in the area. Lu Ming smiled faintly. It seemed that many people had the same thoughts as him. However, was it really that easy to kill his way up? Lu Ming felt that it would not be easy. This was because he had just observed that there were many such wooden houses before they moved in, and they were all occupied. Those people were clearly from the universal camp. The people who had joined in the past were still living here. It was clear that it would not be easy to kill their way up. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2981 Challenge begins. There were originally many wooden houses here, but they were all occupied. This meant that many of the geniuses who had entered the universal camp were still living here. Those who were able to enter the universal camp weren't weak. If it was so easy to kill their way up, those people would have already done so. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. On the 8th day, voices began to echo out. Kill our way up, I want to live up there. I've had enough of this place. Then one figure after another rushed up Star Peak along the mountain road. Brother Lu, Lady Chua, let's go and take a look. Wu Ming and Wu Yu walked over and said, all right. Lu Ming nodded. Together with Chiu Yu, they followed the mountain path and rushed up the mountain. Hee, these newbies are going up to challenge him. A few figures walked out of a few wooden houses. These people were the old men who had joined the Universal Camp in the past. They've just joined and they're all so full of themselves. They don't know the immensity of the heavens and earth. There's going to be a show to watch. Let's go and take a look. The Universal Camp hasn't been this lively in a long time. Some of the older members of the Universal Camp laughed casually as they followed behind and headed up the mountain. The Star Peak was very high. Even at the waist of the mountain, it was more than 1,000,000 feet high. However, to Lu Ming and the group, this was a piece of cake. Soon they arrived at the mountainside. On the mountainside there were courtyards built. The air was dense and the fragrance of flowers assailed the nose. It was a refreshing feeling, completely different from the one at the foot of the mountain. Many people's eyes were burning with passion. They swore that they would definitely get a courtyard this time. The people in the courtyard, get out here. A burly young man was the most anxious. He immediately appeared in front of a courtyard and shouted. Who's shouting so loudly? You're looking for death. A cold voice came from the courtyard. Then the door opened and a cold-looking young man walked out. The cold-looking young man swept his gaze across Lu Ming and the rest, and his eyes fell on the burly young man. He said with a hint of disdain, are you new? So what if he's new? Let me tell you, I've taken a fancy to your courtyard and am challenging you now. Do you dare to accept the challenge? If you don't dare, then quickly get lost. The burly young man shouted with confidence. You want to challenge me? Very well, make your move. If you can defeat me, you can have this courtyard. The cold-looking young man looked relaxed, as if he did not take the burly young man seriously at all. Presumptuous, sky-shaking Saint Elephant, suppress him. The burly young man shouted, and a powerful aura burst out from his body. 8th level celestial deity. The burly young man's cultivation had shockingly reached the 8th level celestial deity. Needless to say, his divine power was also divine-grade divine power. Divine power burst forth. As the burly young man pushed out his palms, a giant elephant 10,000 meters tall appeared and stomped toward the cold young man. Humph, he's just a pretty boy. The cold-looking young man said coldly. His figure suddenly flashed and he rushed out like an eagle. Chila. Then the cold-looking young man waved his hand and clawed out. His claws were very small compared to the giant elephant, but when the sharp claws grabbed the giant elephant, a terrifying power burst out. Bang! The giant elephant's body exploded. How is that possible? What? The burly young man was shocked. He didn't expect that his ultimate move would be broken so easily. But after the cold-looking young man defeated the giant elephant, he did not stop. In a flash, he appeared above the burly young man and clawed down. The burly young man's expression changed drastically. He swung his fists with all his might, and the sound of an elephant's trumpeting could be heard. He wanted to form a giant elephant again to fight against the cold young man. However, the power from the cold youth's claw was extremely sharp and it pierced through the elephant. Moreover, the burly young man's defense was like tofu in the hands of the cold young man. The cold-looking young man's claw landed heavily on the burly young man's shoulder. The burly young man let out a blood-curdling screech as the bone armor on his shoulder was broken, and his bones and blood splattered everywhere. Then, the cold-looking young man swung his arm and smashed the burly young man to the ground. Boom! The ground trembled and the burly young man screamed. His body bounced up like a ball and then fell back down. He twitched on the ground and was seriously injured. CSI, many people gasped. The burly young man's combat strength was definitely not weak. He was at the 8th level of the heavenly deity realm. Among the new recruits of the Universal Camp, he was definitely above average. However, in the hands of the cold young man, he couldn't even withstand a single blow. 9th level celestial deity, the other party's cultivation has already reached 9th level celestial deity. It can't be that the people staying in these courtyards all have 9th level celestial deity cultivation, right? At the thought of this, many people's faces turned ugly. If the people who stayed here were all at the 9th level heavenly deity realm, then those below the 9th level heavenly deity realm would not be able to challenge them. Wouldn't that mean that they would have to stay at the foot of the mountain for a very long time? When they thought of the stench at the foot of the mountain, many people felt nauseated and almost vomited. How did this happen? Damn it. Many people roared in anger, their hearts turning cold. Ninth level celestial deity? Is it really as simple as just being a ninth level celestial deity? You're really naive. Some of the older members sneered. Who else wants to challenge me, Icehawk? Hurry up and make your move. I don't have that much time to waste with you. The cold-looking young man scanned the crowd and said coldly. His name was Icehawk and he lived up to his name. Many people looked at each other, measuring their own strength and finally shook their heads helplessly. If one's combat strength couldn't surpass the burly youths, they would only be looking for a beating. I'll do it. At this time, a sonorous voice was heard and a black-robed young man stepped out. This person was carrying a long sword on his back, like a divine sword that had been unsheathed. It's him. Lu Ming's eyes flickered as he recognized this person. He was one of the 4 ninth-tier celestial deity prodigies who had attacked the Night Demon King at demonic capital mountain, a swordsman. It's Xuedong. He's about to make a move. Xuedong has a 9th-level celestial deity cultivation. Furthermore, he's a sword cultivator. He has the chance to defeat the other party. Seeing Xuedong make his move, some people's eyes lit up. If Xuedong could defeat the other, it would bring them a lot of hope. Huhu, an ordinary 9th-level celestial deity also wants to defeat Icehawk. Truly delusional. An old member sneered. Both of you are 9th-level heavenly deities and Xuedong is a sword cultivator who is known for his attack power. How do you know that Xuedong can't defeat Icehawk? A new member said unhappily. Ignorant, just watch and you'll know. The old member said in disdain. Make your move. Show me your strongest move. Otherwise, you won't have a chance when I make my move. Leng Ying said coldly. Even in front of Xuedong, his face was still full of contempt. But Xuedong was very direct. He attacked right away. He unsheathed his long sword and a bright and sharp sword light cut through the void, slashing towards Leng Ying. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Origin Divine Power Factor. Xuedong's sword was extremely sharp. In an instant, it sliced through the air and headed towards Leng Ying's chest. However, in the face of Xuedong's terrifying attack, Leng Ying's expression was still relaxed. He stretched out a hand and clawed out. Chi-chi, the sharp sound of air being cut rang out. Leng Ying's claw had completely transformed into a divine eagle's claw and grabbed Xuedong's combat sword. Buzz! Sparks flew in all directions, the divine eagle cried out, and the sword light trembled continuously. In the next moment, Xuedong's sword light actually shattered, and a figure retreated rapidly, retreating hundreds of meters before he could stabilize himself. The person who retreated was Xuedong, while Leng Ying's figure remained unmoving. Many people were shocked. How did this happen? Xuedong and Leng Ying were both 9th-level heavenly deities, and Xuedong was a sword cultivator who specialized in attacks. Yet he was actually forced back by Leng Ying in a head-on collision. What was going on? Xuedong's eyes also became serious. The aura on his body became stronger. Sword will filled the sky and countless tiny sword chi wandered around him. Lone Star Sword of Destruction. Xuedong let out a low growl. He struck out with his sword again, sending out countless sword chi. But the next moment, the countless sword chi gathered together and turned into a sword light as thick as a mountain, slashing towards Leng Ying. Did you use your ultimate move? This move is more decent. Leng Ying's cold voice rang out. Then his figure soared into the sky. He circulated his divine power and seemed to have completely transformed into a divine eagle. His wings were like blades as he flapped them. Boom, boom, boom. The violent energy collided with each other, creating thousands of energy waves. In an instant, there were hundreds of explosions. In the end, the sword light trembled and shattered in the air. Then a divine eagle flashed and disappeared. Following that, a figure cried out in pain and retreated. Boom. Xuedong's body crashed heavily onto the mountain peak and he spat out a large mouthful of blood. His chest had been torn open and there were a few bloody holes. They were clearly caused by the eagle's claws. He was defeated. The 9th-level celestial deity sword Xiao Xuedong had only exchanged 2 moves and was already defeated. Why? Many of the new members' faces were pale and they couldn't believe it. They were at the same level and they both had divine-grade divine power. Why did Xuedong lose so badly? It's divine power. His divine power is almost at the stage of awakening the origin factor. Suddenly, someone shouted. What? The origin factor? Someone exclaimed. However, there were some people who were stunned. What was the origin factor? What is the origin factor? Lu Ming muttered. He had never heard of it before. Brother Lu, you don't know about the origin factor? Wu Ming looked at Lu Ming and asked. I don't know, Brother Wu. What is the origin factor? Lu Ming started to shake his head and continued asking. The origin factor is the origin of a type of divine power. We have to start from the very beginning of divine power. Brother Lu, you should know that the primeval universe has been divided into 2 eras since the beginning of time, right? Wu Ming said. Yeah, I know. 2 eras. The earliest one was the incipient God realm and the later one was the Heaven Palace era. Lu Ming nodded. He had already read about this in the ancient records. The long history of the primal universe was divided into the incipient God realm era and the Heaven Palace era. The incipient God realm was the beginning of the universe. At that time, the world had given birth to so many powerful existences. They were called the incipient God realm or the original God realm. The ancient God clan was also one of the incipient God realm experts. And now, it was the later stage of the Heavenly Palace era. In the incipient God realm, the powerful existences that were born naturally could control God power. They had different kinds of God power, and those God powers were all extremely powerful. They were called the origin God power. The God power of today can't be compared to them. Wu Ming said. Even divine-grade divine power can't? Lu Ming asked. No, I'm far from it. And NBSP Wu Ming shook his head and said, divine-grade divine power can't be compared to origin divine power at all. In terms of quality, it's like the difference between rotten wood and gold. Even in the beginning of the Heaven Palace era, divine-grade divine power was the most basic divine power, not to mention the incipient God era. Anyone who cultivated it with some talent could control divine-grade divine power. However, as time passed, the divine chi of the primeval universe became thinner and thinner, and the origin became rarer and rarer. The cultivators were scattered all over the universe, so it became more and more difficult to control high-quality divine power. In the end, it evolved into divine-grade divine power, sacred-grade divine power, king-grade divine power, and ordinary divine power. Wu Ming spoke with fervor and assurance. He was born in a great aristocratic family and knew a lot about the history of the desolate universe. Lu Ming was secretly shocked. He did not expect that at the beginning of the era of the Heavenly Palace, the divine energy that a cultivator controlled was a divine-grade divine energy. But what did this have to do with the origin factor of Shin power? Lu Ming did not say anything and waited for Wu Ming to continue. And NBSP as expected, Wu Ming continued, strictly speaking, sacred-grade divine power, king-grade divine power, and ordinary divine power are all unqualified divine powers. These divine powers have very limited potential. Cultivating to the divine king realm is already the limit. It's impossible to continue breaking through. The reason is that it is impossible to awaken the origin factor in this divine power. Only divine-grade divine power can awaken the origin factor. In truth, every kind of divine-grade divine power is evolved from the original origin divine power. In the end, every kind of divine-grade divine power can find a corresponding origin divine power. Therefore, as long as one continuously awakens the origin factor, in the end, divine-grade divine power can be transformed into the corresponding origin divine power. One can control the origin and have infinite power. Wu Ming said. At this point, his eyes were filled with a burning flame. Then how can I awaken the origin factor? Lu Ming asked again. His heart was burning. Jing, you didn't leave behind any of this knowledge, and the Universe Thousand Tao Arts didn't record it either. To comprehend and use it, I have to continuously comprehend and control the divine-grade divine power and use it continuously. When I reach a certain level, I will naturally be able to activate the origin factor. Wu Ming said. In that case, Lung Ying has activated the origin factor? Lu Ming said. That's impossible. The origin factor is not that easy to activate. It's terrifyingly difficult. I'm afraid not even 1 out of 100 geniuses who can control divine-grade divine power can activate it. The chances will only be higher if one's cultivation has reached the upper echelons of the divine king realm. I estimate that Lung Ying is only close to activating his origin factor. Even so, his divine power will become extremely strong and powerful. Wu Ming said. Lu Ming nodded. He had a general understanding of the origin factor of divine power. It seemed that his previous understanding of Shin power had been wrong. Every kind of divine-grade divine power had great potential to be unearthed. Then it seems that I've taken the wrong path of cultivation. Lu Ming muttered. And NBSP, he had 10 types of divine power in his body, but only 2 were divine-grade divine power. According to Wu Ming, other than divine-grade divine power, No matter if it was sacred grade, king grade, or ordinary divine power, they were all incomplete and had limited potential. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2981 Provocation. Other than divine grade divine power, the potential of the other divine powers was limited. If they could not awaken the origin factor, then continuing to cultivate would be meaningless. It would just be a waste of time. It seems that I have to find a chance to find a divine grade divine skill with similar attributes to the divine power and cultivate it. Then, I can merge the divine fire into the divine grade divine power's divine fire. Lu Ming pondered. As long as one cultivated divine grade divine power with similar attributes, one could fuse with those divine grade, king grade, and ordinary divine power. Of course, Lu Ming could disperse it himself. However, it would be a waste. Lu Ming had spent a lot of effort to cultivate each divine energy. The Starry Sky Camp is the gathering place for the paragons of the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion. There should be no lack of divine grade divine arts and techniques, right? Lu Ming pondered. Even a place like the Qin Heaven Star Domain could offer several divine grade divine techniques and wondrous arts. The 9 ultimate heavenly king manor definitely did not lack divine grade divine techniques and wondrous arts. After all, any one of the paragons here could control divine grade divine power. Most of the Heaven's Pride experts had relied on divine grade divine arts and wondrous techniques to cultivate. While Lu Ming and Wu Mingyi were discussing, the others were also discussing fervently. They looked at Leng Ying with respect. Even if Leng Ying had not awakened the origin factor of Shin power, he was close to it. He was invincible among his peers. No wonder Shuedong had lost so badly. Who still wants my courtyard? Hurry up and fight, don't waste my time. Leng Ying's gaze swept across the crowd. Many people couldn't help but lower their heads when they were swept by his sharp gaze. No one fought. Shuedong's strength was definitely at the top among this batch of new members. If even he couldn't beat him, anyone else would just be looking for a beating. I don't believe that the people who live up there are all so strong. Suddenly, a voice rang out and many people's eyes lit up again. That's right, maybe they were just unlucky to have chosen a strong person. Not everyone else had the same cultivation. Bus. With a flash, a young man arrived in front of another courtyard. You want to challenge me? The owner of the courtyard had long been alerted by the commotion outside. At this moment, he was lazily leaning against the door and asking. Not bad, I've taken a fancy to your courtyard. The challenging youth said. The aura of a 9th-level celestial deity suffused from his body. This was a genius who was not weaker than Shuedong. Make your move. The lazy-looking young man said lazily. Thunderclap fist. The young man made his move. He waved his fist and lightning filled the sky. The void trembled and the power was shocking. However, after a few moves, the lightning dispersed and the young man who challenged him followed in Shuedong's footsteps and was severely injured. He was defeated again. So strong. This person's strength is also very strong. He is also an existence close to awakening the factor of the origin divine power. Someone exclaimed. The others' faces turned pale. The second person was also this strong? It couldn't be that all the people living up there were so strong and close to awakening the divine power factor, right? If that was the case, no one would be able to succeed in the challenge today. I don't believe it. Continue? Someone growled and continued to challenge people from other courtyards. However, it turned out that their guess was right. The geniuses living here were all shockingly powerful. They were all close to awakening the origin divine power factor and had crushed them in a crushing manner. In the end, no one continued to challenge. Don't tell me that we're going to stay down there forever? No, I want to go home. There was a wave of wailing at the scene. Of course, it was only for a short while. No one really wanted to go home or quit. If they were to withdraw because of such a reason, even if they returned to their respective forces and families, they would most likely be spurned and never be able to stand out. So I'd better work hard on my cultivation and try to awaken the divine force factor as soon as possible. Or perhaps I can break through to the half-step divine king realm as soon as possible. That way we can kill our way up here. Yup. Many people sighed and finally understood how terrifying the geniuses of the starry sky were. Some people wanted to retreat. You wait. All of a sudden, a cold voice was heard. An aura spread toward Lu Ming and finally landed on Qiuyu. Lu Ming frowned. The owner of the aura was the first person to be challenged, Leng Ying. At this moment, Leng Ying's eyes were burning with evil fire as he stared at Qiuyu. Boom. Qiu Yu's aura exploded, trying to break through Leng Ying's aura suppression, but she failed. What is this guy trying to do? Some people were moved. Miss, you don't have to go down. You can stay in my courtyard. I just happen to be lacking a maidservant. Icehawk said indifferently, his voice carrying a hint of command. Who wants to be your maid? Dream on. Qiu Yu struggled. You refuse? Icehawk's eyes gleamed with a sharp light. If you live here, you don't have to live in that stinky place down there? Also, when I'm free, I'll guide you in your cultivation. This is a great fortune for you, do you understand? Leng Ying stared at Qiu Yu. As for Lu Ming, Wu Yu, Wu Ming and the others, he had completely ignored them. Many people looked at Qiu Yu with pity. The crown prince that Icehawk was talking about was nothing more than someone who had taken a fancy to Qiu Yu's beauty and wanted to keep her for his own use. However, Qiu Yu was indeed devastatingly beautiful. The other young men were also tempted by her beauty. Bang! At this moment, Lu Ming took a step forward and landed in front of Qiu Yu. The ground trembled and Leng Ying's aura was dispersed. A murderous glint flashed across Leng Ying's eyes. He finally turned his gaze to Lu Ming. Brat, you want to meddle in other people's business? Icehawk said coldly. What busybody? She's my woman. Tell me, is this a matter of concern? Lu Ming said indifferently. Your woman? Hearing this, the killing intent in Icehawk's eyes grew even stronger. He said, such a beautiful woman actually fell into your hands. What a waste of a heavenly treasure. Makes me very unhappy. And then? Lu Ming said indifferently. Then I'm going to destroy your eyes, die. Icehawk shouted coldly. In a flash he charged at Lu Ming. His two fingers were like two javelins, aiming for Lu Ming's eyes. Boom. The divine energy in Lu Ming's body circulated at full force. At the same time he triggered the fourfold combat power of the battle formula. A long spear silently appeared in Lu Ming's hands. The long spear vibrated and two spear rays burst out. Thump, thump. The spear light and frigid eagle's fingers collided, resulting in two loud bangs. Lu Ming was forced to take a few steps back. However, Icehawk's figure also drifted backward. What? He blocked it? At the side the others were shocked. Other than Wu Ming and a few others, the rest found it hard to believe that Lu Ming could actually block Leng Ying's attack and even force him to retreat. Lu Ming was merely a fourth-level celestial deity. What? Leng Ying himself also revealed a shocked expression. He also never expected that a fourth-level celestial deity could erupt with such shocking power. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Get lost, kid, you have some strength, but I only used 20% of my strength just now. Now I'll let you see my true strength. Leng Ying shouted as his aura surged. He circulated his divine power and formed a giant divine eagle around him. Buzz! The cry of a goshawk was heard. The frigid eagle pounced toward Lu Ming, its sharp claws tearing through the air as it tried to grab him. You're not the only one who didn't use your full strength. You're courting death. Lu Ming growled coldly. Then, his body swelled rapidly, turning into a green-armored ancient god that was hundreds of meters tall. Buzz! The long spear trembled and swept out horizontally. It was as if a gale was blowing on the mountain peak. In the next moment, Leng Ying's eagle claws grabbed Lu Ming's huge long spear. Boom. Zzzz. The eagle's talons grabbed onto the spear, causing a violent boom and ear-piercing friction sound. Sparks flew in all directions. The two of them clashed for a few seconds before the spear radiance trembled and retracted. However, Icehawk's body was also forced back. He only managed to stabilize himself after retreating tens of thousands of meters. His pair of claws were placed behind his back, trembling slightly to avoid being seen by others. His eyes were filled with shock. Lu Ming's ability had completely exceeded his expectations. What terrifying divine power! The others were also shocked. This included some of the senior members and even the members who lived on Star Peak. They looked at Lu Ming in shock. No one had expected Lu Ming to have such combat strength. Ancient God Body, that's the Ancient God Body. I didn't think that this person would have cultivated the Ancient God Body to such a level. It's amazing. What's even more shocking is that he's only a fourth-level celestial deity. The surrounding area was filled with discussions. He didn't expect that there would be such a powerful Heaven's favorite among this batch of newcomers. I really didn't expect that there would be a Heaven's favorite like you among the new members this time. You're quite strong. On account of your strength, I won't hold it against you today. You can go. Icehawk said, waving his hand. You're not going to argue? I didn't say I wouldn't care. Lu Ming sneered. Lu Ming did not intend to let the other party off easily if he wanted to touch his woman. What do you want to do? Icehawk's face darkened. I've taken a fancy to your courtyard. Now take your things and get lost. Lu Ming said coldly. Lu Ming was initially considering who he should challenge. He did not expect that Leng Ying would take the initiative to provoke him. He would start with him. Brat, don't refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. Leng Ying shouted coldly, his killing intent cold. I like to drink the hard way, so what? If you don't get lost, then I'll make you get lost. Lu Ming shouted coldly and strode towards Leng Ying. The huge long spear pressed down on Leng Ying with the force of Mount Tai. You're looking for death. Leng Ying bellowed. A huge godly eagle formed around him. It carried him and soared into the sky, heading for Lu Ming. Boom. The two of them clashed for the second time. The sky trembled and thousands of chi forces scattered in all directions. Lu Ming's body swayed slightly, but Icehawk's body retreated rapidly. Is this the power of someone who is about to awaken the divine power factor? It's indeed powerful. Lu Ming's mind was racing. He felt that Leng Ying's Shin power was shockingly powerful. His attack power was extremely strong and had almost destroyed his Shin power. If he did not have the 10 types of Shin power and the support of the battle formula, he would not have been able to fight back. Again? Lu Ming shouted and continued to charge at Leng Ying. Bang! Bang! Lu Ming stepped in the air. With every step he took, a 9-clawed divine dragon would dance out. After 7 steps, 7 9-clawed divine dragons were formed and they pounced at Leng Ying. At the same time, Lu Ming's long spear struck down, displaying the second move of the 3 apocalyptic strikes, mooncutting. He activated both his divine skill and secret skill at the same time. The terrifying attack was like a wave that crushed towards Leng Ying. Divine Eagle Glory. Leng Ying let out a long cry. Feathers actually grew out of his skin, making the divine eagle he had transformed into even more powerful. The two of them exchanged blows in the void. In an instant they had exchanged dozens of moves. Frigid Eagle were losing. Someone muttered. In the battle between Leng Ying and Lu Ming, Leng Ying was at a disadvantage from the beginning to the end. He was being suppressed by Lu Ming. Defeat was a matter of time and it would be very soon. As expected, Leng Ying barely managed to exchange a few dozen moves with Lu Ming before he was struck by Lu Ming's spear. One of his wings of the divine eagle form crumbled. Icehawk's expression changed drastically, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Break the air, break the air. Lu Ming took the opportunity to launch a fierce attack. In an instant, dozens of terrifying spear gleams were aimed at Leng Ying. Each of the spear's gleam was equivalent to the power of Lu Ming's space-piercing move at full force. If not for the constant supply of divine power from the quantity formula, Lu Ming would not have been able to squander his divine power like this. Boom, boom, boom. After being hit by these spear lights, the divine eagle that Leng Ying had condensed completely collapsed. His body was pierced through by a spear light. The spear light brought his body and landed on the star peak, nailing him to a rock. Leng Ying was not dead. Lu Ming had shown mercy. Otherwise, that shot would have taken his life. As he was new here, Lu Ming did not want to attract too much trouble. Many people were dumbfounded. They didn't expect that Icehawk would be defeated, and so miserably at that. On the other hand, many of the senior members had grave looks on their faces. Lu Ming had given them a lot of pressure. Lu Ming waved his hand, and the spear's gleam that was stuck in Leng Ying's body disappeared. Leng Ying landed on the ground, coughing up a mouthful of blood. His injuries were very serious, and he would need at least 10 days to half a month to fully recover. Now get lost. Lu Ming was indifferent. Just you wait. Leng Ying left a vicious sentence before he staggered down the mountain. Now that he had been defeated and chased out of the courtyard, he was no longer qualified to fly in this area and could only walk on his feet. Lu Ming smiled faintly. He stepped into the courtyard and swept his gaze across it. The courtyard was huge and unique. Lu Ming liked it very much. Chiu, stay here with me. Lu Ming walked out and looked at Chiu. According to the rules, the owner of the courtyard could invite a few people to stay with him. Yes, young master. Chiu smiled. The other new members were all envious. They were envious that Lu Ming could live on Star Peak instead of the smelly land at the foot of the mountain. Brother Wu Ming, brother Wu Yu, let's stay together. Lu Ming also invited Wu Ming and Wu Yu. The courtyard was huge and had many rooms. It was not a problem for a few more people to live in. We don't need it, we want to fight our way up with our own strength in the future. Wu Ming said with a smile. That's right. We'll only be motivated if we stay below. In fact, there are other geniuses of the Wu family who live above us, but they don't feel any pressure if they come up directly. Wuya said. That's good, I'll wait for you guys up there. Lu Ming smiled and did not insist. He knew that Wu Ming and Wu Yu were right. He would only be motivated if he lived below. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2984 Meeting Jin Xing again. Lu Ming, Wu Ming, and Wu Yu chatted for a while. At that moment, in the sky far away, an elder was watching them from afar. It's here, it's finally here. After so many years, it's finally here, ha ha ha. The old man laughed, his body shaking with excitement. After a while, the old man's emotions calmed down. Then his eyes flickered a few times. He took a step forward and disappeared. Brother Lu, well, take our leave then. Wu Yu and Wu Ming cupped their fists and planned to leave. Kid, it's you. At this moment, an angry roar was heard. Then a few people stepped on the air and came above Lu Ming and the others. A cold aura spread toward Lu Ming. The Qin family and Jin Xing. Lu Ming swept his gaze and saw a few familiar faces. One of them was Jin Xing, the one who had been defeated by Lu Ming when he went to the Qin Heaven Star Zone. There were a few young men beside Jin Xing. Two of them had a scale between their eyebrows. Lu Ming could tell at a glance that they were from the same family as Qin Wuyo and Qin Wushang. Since these people could fly in the air, it meant that they also lived on this star peak. However, with Jin Xing's cultivation, it was impossible for him to live here. He should be living in someone else's garden. The few of them looked at Lu Ming coldly. Jin Xing, this is the brat who killed my cousin Wuyo? One of the young men with a scale on his forehead said coldly. That's right, it's him. He was the one who killed Qin Wuyo in the Qin Heaven Star domain. Jin Xing pointed at Lu Ming and said. Very good, you dare to kill my Qin family's people, you're courting death. One of the Qin clan's elites said coldly. He took a step forward and landed in front of Lu Ming. His cold aura pressed down on Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming's expression remained unchanged. Kid, I'm going to challenge you to a life-and-death battle. The Qin clan's chosen said. I don't have time, I'm not fighting. Lu Ming rejected him directly. The Qin family's prodigy gave him an unfathomable feeling. To be honest, Lu Ming was not confident. Since he was not confident, why did Lu Ming have to fight? Don't fight. The Qin clan's heaven's favorite was slightly stunned. His eyes revealed killing intent as he said, Today you have to fight even if you don't want to. With that, a powerful aura rose from his body, and a terrifying pressure spread out in all directions. Half-step Divine King Realm. Many people's expressions changed. The Qin clan's genius was a half-step Divine King. Lu Ming's expression turned serious. Lu Ming was not afraid of ordinary half-step Divine Kings. He could easily crush them, such as the 9 great demon masters of the demon capital mountain. However, the man before him was clearly not an ordinary half-step Divine King. He was a peerless heaven's favorite who had mastered the divine-grade divine power. His combat strength was not something that ordinary people could compare to. If the other party was close to awakening the divine power factor, their combat strength would be even more shocking. Even if Lu Ming went all out, he might not be a match for them. However, if he really had to fight, Lu Ming was not afraid. At most, he would fight with all his might. If it was a life-and-death battle, Lu Ming could burn his ancient god heart and kill the other party. Lu Ming's body was also filled with a strong fighting spirit. Wait a moment. At this moment, Wu Ming called out. You have something to say? The Qin clan's Heaven's Pride expert looked at Wu Ming coldly. I remember there's a rule in the Star Sky Camp. If a new member successfully challenges an old member of Star Peak and takes away the other party's courtyard, they will have a 50-year protection period. Within these 50 years, they can refuse the challenge of others. Wu Ming said. That's right, there is indeed such a rule. Indeed, this is to protect the new members. Some people also started to discuss. Although it was very difficult for new members to challenge the geniuses living on Star Peak. However, there would always be some terrifying talents among the new members. It was still possible to succeed, such as Lu Ming this time. That was why this rule was made to protect the new members. The Qin clan's elites, Jin Xing and the others also remembered and their faces darkened. Oh, if there's such a rule, then hurry up and get lost. If you want to fight me, come back 50 years later. Lu Ming waved his hands casually as if he was dismissing a beggar. Detestable. The Qin clan's paragon roared in his heart. He really wanted to slap Lu Ming to death. Unfortunately, he could not go against the rules of the universal camp. Brat, if you have the guts, then accept my challenge. Don't be a tortoise. The Qin family's paragon shouted coldly, hoping to use the law to provoke Lu Ming into accepting the challenge. However, Lu Ming would not fall for such a low-level goading. Alright, if you suppress your cultivation to the same level as mine, I'll accept your challenge. Lu Ming smiled. The Qin clan's chosen fell silent. What a joke, suppressed to the same level as Lu Ming. Didn't they see how Lu Ming, a 4th-level celestial deity, defeated Icehawk? If he was at the same level as Lu Ming, he would be courting death. What's wrong? Do you dare to? If you don't dare, then don't talk nonsense here. You only know how to use your cultivation level to suppress others. What kind of heaven's favorite are you? You're more like trash. Lu Ming shouted coldly. You, the Qin clan's paragon almost vomited blood in anger. He wanted to insult Lu Ming but he could not. Instead he was insulted. You what? If you don't dare, then get lost and don't disturb my cultivation. Lu Ming said in disdain. Lu Ming, you're so bold. At this moment, Jin Xing roared. Lu Ming looked at Jin Xing in surprise. Lu Ming, you're from the Qin Heaven Starfield. The people from the Qin Heaven Starfield have stolen the 9 Absolute God Crystal, the treasure of the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion, and are now atoning for their crime. Do you have any ulterior motives? Jin Xing roared, his eyes flashing with a cunning light. A person from the Qin Heaven Starfield. I didn't expect that he's from the Qin Heaven Starfield. The people of the Qin Heaven Starfield are indeed guilty of their crimes now. When many people heard that Lu Ming was from the Qin Heaven Star Zone, they looked at him with hostility. The 9 Absolute Heavenly King Manor's treasure had been stolen, and the target was the Qin Heaven Starfield. Now, although they had given the Qin Heaven Star Zone 1,000 years, the people of the Qin Heaven Star Zone were all suspects. Lu Ming, you actually joined the Universal Camp in secret. You must have an ulterior motive. Tell me, did you steal the treasures of the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion? Jin Xing shouted coldly, directly pinning a huge hat on Lu Ming. Your words are like farts. Do you think that with my cultivation I can steal treasures from the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion? Lu Ming's expression was calm as he replied indifferently. Isn't that simple? There's definitely a mole of yours in the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion. Jin Xing's eyes turned and fell on Wu Ming and Wu Yu. He sneered and said, I suspect that the Wu family is your spy and helped you steal the 9 Absolute God Crystal. As soon as he said that, Wu Ming and Wu Yu's expressions changed. Jin Xing's words were despicable. This was to bring the Wu family to its doom. Jin Xing, you're F***king bullshitting. You have to have evidence. If you have the ability, show me the evidence. Wu Ming and Wu Yu roared. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2984 Origin Secret Technique. Jin Xing actually slandered Lu Ming for colluding with the Wu family and stealing the 9 Absolute Divine Crystal. This was a serious crime. Wu Yu and Wu Ming immediately shouted and asked Jin Xing to show evidence. There's no need for evidence. The truth is right in front of you. What evidence do you need? Jin Xing sneered and continued to accuse. Hee, you want to convict someone with just your mouth? How ridiculous is that? Lu Ming said. He looked at Jin Xing in disdain and smiled evilly. Since you insist that I stole the treasure, then fine, I admit that it was the Jin and Qin families who ordered me to do it. The Jin and Qin families wanted to rebel against their superiors. Hearing this, the heavens favorites from the Jin and Qin families were shocked. Bullshit, you're bullshitting. You're full of nonsense. I don't believe a single word you say. Jin Xing, Qin Tian's heavens chosen, roared. Oh, if you can open your mouth and say it, why can't I? Since you're suspicious of me stealing the treasure, then I'll expose you for colluding with me. What's suspicious about that? That's normal. Otherwise, how can I steal the treasure? Lu Ming said indifferently. You, Lu Ming. Damn it! Jin Xing roared angrily, but he could not find any words to refute Lu Ming. If he were to continue to slander Lu Ming for coming to the Star Sky Camp with ill intentions and for him to be related to the 9 Absolute Divine Crystal being stolen, Lu Ming would insist that the Jin family and Qin Tian were their helpers. There was no evidence anyway, so he could just rely on his mouth. Jin Xing's face turned green and white. In the end, he didn't dare to say anything. The 9 Absolute Heavenly King Manor was not just one aristocratic family, but there were many ancient aristocratic families. These aristocratic families worked together under the 9 absolute heavenly king residents, but they were in a competitive relationship and attacked each other. He was afraid that if they continued to suppress Lu Ming, he would say whatever he wanted. It would not be good if the enemy families had a handle on him and attacked him. Lu Ming, you can continue hiding. Let's see how long you can hide. This place can only be protected for a total of 50 years. Jin Xing snorted. You talk too much nonsense. Come. Let's fight at the same level. If you don't fight, you're a bastard. Lu Ming raised his middle finger and beckoned. The heavens favorites from the Jin and Qin families snorted and turned to leave. Brother Lu, you still have to be careful in the future. The Jin family and Qin family are very powerful in the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion. Wu Ming warned. Don't worry. Lu Ming smiled. After that, Wu Ming and Wu Yu bade their farewells and left. Lu Ming and Xiao Yu entered the courtyard and closed the door. The courtyard was huge. It had a courtyard, a pavilion, and 7 to 8 rooms. The two of them each chose a room. Lu Ming walked into the room and sat cross-legged. He could feel a strange fluctuation coming from the top of the star peak. This wave could clear one's mind and soul, speeding up the comprehension of divine skills and secret skills. However, Lu Ming was not in the mood to comprehend the divine skills and secret skills. He was thinking about the origin divine power factor. There should be a library in the universal camp. There should also be a place to buy divine techniques. Let's go and look. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He then got up and left the room. He soared into the sky and watched from afar. On Star Peak, other than many courtyards, there were also many magnificent palaces. From afar, Lu Ming saw a palace with people coming in and out. It was quite lively, so Lu Ming flew towards it. After arriving here, he discovered that this place was a market city. People came and went and it was very lively. Lu Ming immediately bought a map of the space camp. On the map, some of the important places in the area of the Star Sky camp were marked. There's indeed a scripture hall. Let's go take a look. Lu Ming flew over according to the marks on the map. Soon Lu Ming saw a magnificent palace. Above the door there were 3 large words Sutra Library. There was a white-haired old man standing guard at the gate. You can stay on the first floor and read freely. You can only buy anything on the second floor and above. The old man said indifferently. Many thanks, senior. Lu Ming cupped his fists and walked in. The first floor was extremely spacious, and with a single glance, it was filled with books and ancient records. Lu Ming flipped through the books casually and realized that the books on the first floor were not secret manuals of divine techniques or divine skills. Instead, they were some miscellaneous books. For example, there were books that recorded all sorts of desolate beasts, all sorts of strange stories, introductions to the customs and practices of different star fields, as well as the history of the Great Void Holy Dynasty. No wonder he could flip through it so casually. Lu Ming swept a glance over. Godly Power Biography. Suddenly, a book caught Lu Ming's attention. Immediately, Lu Ming started to flip through the book. The first section introduced the basic knowledge of divine power. Lu Ming knew everything and skipped through it. After that, he began to introduce the origin divine power factor. Most of them were similar to what Wu Ming and Wu Yu had said. However, it was more detailed here. As one's comprehension and application of divine-grade divine power deepened, one could awaken the origin divine power factor when they reached a certain level. However, before awakening the origin divine power factor, there was a process called the degree of awakening. For example, Leng Ying and the others who lived on the mountainside of Star Peak had entered this stage and were not far from awakening. Of course, there was still a gap between this stage and awakening. Some people's degree of awakening was 10%, while some people's degree of awakening was 20%. Only when the degree of awakening reached 100% could the origin divine power factor be considered to be truly awakened. The higher the degree of awakening, the more powerful the divine power would be. I wonder what Frigid Eagle's awakening level is. According to this record, it should be below 50%. Lu Ming pondered, but he thought of himself. He probably hasn't even awakened 10% of the ruler's divine power. As for the inextinguishable sword force, it was even worse. It seems that I have to spend more time on Shin power in the future. Lu Ming pondered and continued to read. The more he read, the more he sighed. It turned out that after he had awakened the original divine power, it was just the beginning. He had just awakened the seed. He was still far from the divine power that the primitive gods in the incipient god realm had. The origin divine power factor that had just been awakened was only at the first stage. In the future he could still awaken for the second time, and the third time. After the second awakening he would reach the second tier of the divine power factor. After the third awakening he would reach the third tier of the divine power factor. Every awakening was extremely difficult, 1 in a million. After each awakening the divine power would transform and become stronger. It could even give birth to origin secret skills. Every time it was awakened, the origin secret skill that was born might be different. It might be more powerful than ordinary secret skills and mysterious. No one knew how many times the divine power factor could be awakened. Legend had it that the highest number of times a person could awaken was 9. By then, the divine power had already transformed into a terrifying power. It was definitely equivalent to the true origin divine power and had boundless power. Anyone who could do that was a true peak existence in the primeval universe, a figure who dominated the universe. A Shin power actually has so many mysteries. It has endless potential. Lu Ming sighed. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. The complete 9 Heavenly Kunpeng technique. Looking at the introduction of the origin divine power factor, Lu Ming was even more determined to focus on cultivating divine-grade divine power and merge the king-grade divine power and divine-grade divine power in his body. Let's go up a few floors and see if there are any divine-grade divine skills with attributes similar to the sacred-grade divine power and king-grade divine power that I cultivate. Lu Ming muttered and then left the first floor. He walked up the stairs and went up to the second floor. On the second floor there were some secret manuals of divine skills. However, there was a restriction placed on each of the secret manuals. Lu Ming picked one up and flipped through it. He realized that he could only flip through the first 2 pages, which contained a simple introduction of the skill. As for the specific content, he could not flip through it no matter how hard he tried. If one wanted to read the rest of the content, one could only buy it and ask the expert guarding the place to open the restriction for them. Let's see if I can find a suitable speed-type godly skill. Lu Ming suddenly had an idea. The 9 Heavenly Kunpeng technique that he cultivated was incomplete, and the highest level he could reach was the 7th level. Now that he had cultivated it to the peak, he wanted to find a speed-type divine skill that could cultivate to a higher level. As for the offensive and defensive divine skills, there were a total of 9 levels in the 3 apocalyptic strikes and the 9-fold crimson gold armor. It was enough for Lu Ming to cultivate for a period of time. Ordinary cultivators could only reach the 9th level of the divine skill after reaching the divine king realm. Therefore it was not easy to reach the 9th level. He didn't need to change these 2 for the time being. Lu Ming walked around the second floor and scanned the room. Not long after, his eyes lit up. 9 Heavenly Kunpeng technique. There's actually a 9 Heavenly Kunpeng technique here. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He saw a speed-type divine skill, the 9 Heavenly Kunpeng technique. Lu Ming quickly picked it up and flipped through it. Of course he could only flip to the first 2 pages, which introduced the 9 Heavenly Kunpeng technique. The 13th level. This is the complete 9 Heavenly Kunpeng technique. It can be cultivated to the 13th level. Lu Ming was overjoyed. Needless to say, Lu Ming was definitely going to buy this 9 Heavenly Kunpeng technique. If he were to purchase other speed-type divine skills, Lu Ming would have to start from the 1st level. However, he could start from the 7th level when he cultivated the 9 Heavenly Kunpeng technique. Lu Ming kept the 9 Heavenly Kunpeng technique manual and felt satisfied. He then walked to the 3rd floor. On the 3rd floor there were all kinds of divine techniques. Moreover, they were all divine-grade divine skills and techniques. When cultivated to the peak, one could cultivate divine-grade divine power. There were hundreds of them. Lu Ming's eyes were burning with passion. There were more than 100 divine-grade divine arts and techniques, and each of them could cultivate a different divine-grade divine energy. This made Lu Ming's heart beat faster. He had the heaven and earth thousand Tao scripture and could cultivate many types of divine power. If he could successfully cultivate all these divine techniques, then wouldn't he be able to control hundreds of divine-grade divine power? Lu Ming's eyes were filled with greed. Calm down, calm down. Lu Ming took a deep breath and calmed himself down. In the past he really wanted to cultivate so many types of divine-grade divine power. However, he had changed his mind now. Every kind of divine-grade divine power had endless potential and could continuously awaken the origin divine power factor. Thus, while he could cultivate many kinds of divine power, he did not have that much energy to awaken the origin divine power factor. Therefore, he did not plan to cultivate too many types for the time being. He only wanted to cultivate divine power that was similar to the divine and king-grade divine power in his body. When he had the chance in the future, he would cultivate more Shin power. After calming down, Lu Ming began to search. Now he had 10 types of Shin power in his body. They were 3 king-grade divine powers. They were the Ice divine power cultivated from the Ice divine technique, the Great Sun divine power cultivated from the Great Sun divine technique, and the Golden Dragon divine power cultivated from the Golden Dragon divine technique. The other 5 types of divine power were the Extreme Cold divine power cultivated from the Extreme Cold divine technique, the Extreme Mysterious divine power cultivated from the Extreme Mysterious divine technique, the Multi-Eye divine power cultivated from the Multi-Eye divine technique, the Sky Wind divine power cultivated from the Sky Wind divine technique, and the 9 Evil divine power cultivated from the 9 Evil divine technique. The last 2 types were Divine Grade divine power, which was Hegemon level divine power and Inextinguishable sword force. Among these divine powers, the Ice divine power and the Ultimate Cold divine power had similar attributes. As long as he found a divine grade divine skill of the cold attribute and successfully cultivated it, he could merge them. As for the other king grade divine powers and sacred grade divine powers, he had to find similar divine grade divine skills to cultivate them. Lu Ming searched carefully. Not long after, he found 2 that satisfied him. When the Moonshin methodology was cultivated to its peak, one could cultivate Moonshin power. Its attributes were extremely cold. If one could awaken the origin Shin power factor, one would be even more terrifying. This was an extremely ancient Shin power. When the Sun Shin methodology was cultivated to its peak, one could cultivate Sun Shin power. The attribute was extremely strong and yang. This was also an extremely ancient Shin power that corresponded to the Sun Shin power. They'll take these 2. Lu Ming smiled and kept the 2 divine techniques. He then continued to search. Not long after, Lu Ming found a few more. The Annihilating Wind divine power cultivated from the Annihilating Wind divine technique was a divine grade divine power and just happened to correspond to the Heavenly Wind divine power. The Heavenly Evil divine power cultivated from the Heavenly Evil divine technique was also a divine grade divine power, and it corresponded to the 9 Evil divine power. The Profound Sky divine technique's Profound Sky divine power was also a divine grade divine power, and its attribute was similar to that of the Profound Sky divine power. However, it was a pity that Lu Ming could not find any divine grade divine arts that corresponded to the Golden Dragon divine power and Multi-Eye divine power after searching through all the divine arts. I'll buy these 5 first. I'll think of a way to buy the other 2 later. Lu Ming pondered. After putting away the divine techniques, he headed to the first floor. At the entrance. What do you want to buy? Let me warn you first, there are restrictions on the things inside. If I don't remove the restrictions, you won't be able to take them out. The old guard reminded. This junior understands. This junior wants to buy these. Lu Ming took out the 9 Heavenly Kuan Ping technique, and the secret manuals of the 5 divine grade mystical techniques. You want to buy so many divine grade divine arts and techniques? Little guy, each person only needs to cultivate 1. Don't you understand? The old man's eyes widened and he looked at Lu Ming in surprise. Senior, you've misunderstood. I'm not buying it for myself. I come from a small place and there's a lack of divine grade techniques there. I'm buying it for my friend. Lu Ming randomly came up with a reason. I see. The old man nodded. He didn't doubt it. It was normal to buy it for his family and friends. However, the price of a divine grade divine art is very high. 1 book is... Then the old man announced the total price of the 5 wondrous techniques and the 9 Heavenly Kuan Ping technique. Lu Ming gasped after hearing the price. 100,000 high-grade divine crystals. The total price would be 100,000 high-grade divine crystals. High-grade divine crystals were divine crystals used by God Kings to cultivate. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Seven types of divine grade divine power. 100,000 high-grade divine crystals was equivalent to 10 billion mid-grade divine crystals. As for how many low-grade divine crystals it was equivalent to, it was an astronomical figure. Upon hearing this number, Lu Ming was also shocked. The old man also looked at Lu Ming with a smile. Even a low-level divine king would not be able to afford such a price. He was certain that Lu Ming would not be able to afford so many divine crystals. Sigh, what a pity. I can't directly buy the first level. Lu Ming also sighed in his heart. In fact, he only needed to buy the first level of these divine techniques. However, there was a rule here that if he wanted to buy, he could only buy the whole book. After sighing, Lu Ming took out a few storage rings and fiddled with them. Then he handed one to the old man. Senior, the low-grade, mid-grade and high-grade divine crystals in here are exactly the same as 100,000 high-grade divine crystals. Lu Ming said. Do you really have that many divine crystals? The old man was skeptical. He took Lu Ming's storage ring and scanned it with his spiritual senses. He was stunned. The space in the storage ring was filled with divine crystals. There was a mountain of low-grade and middle-grade divine crystals, as well as a portion of high-grade divine crystals. An ordinary person would not be able to count them, but with the elder's powerful spiritual sense, he was able to count them in a few breaths. The divine crystals added together were exactly the same as 100,000 high-grade divine crystals. Kid, you're amazing. You really can take out 100,000 high-grade divine crystals. The old man also sighed. Lu Ming sighed in his heart. If he had not killed the Night Demon Lord and obtained his storage ring, he would not have been able to take out so many divine crystals. One had to know that the Night Demon King owned the Demon Night Spring, which was why he had so many divine crystals. Even so, after paying such a large sum of divine crystals, Lu Ming did not have many divine crystals left. Since you've paid the divine crystals, these divine techniques are yours. They'll remove the restrictions on them for you, the old man said. Then he formed a seal with both hands. Runes flew into the secret manual one after another. The light on the secret manual flickered a few times before it stabilized. All right, the restriction on it has been broken. Take it, the old man said. Many thanks, senior. Lu Ming cupped his fists and took the secret manual. He kept it in his storage ring and returned to his residence impatiently. Qiuyue, after returning to his residence, Lu Ming walked into Qiuyu's room. Young master, what's wrong? Qiuyu ended her cultivation and blinked at Lu Ming. Qiuyue, how's your cultivation going with the Saint-grade divine arts I gave you before? Lu Ming asked. They've all been successfully cultivated. They've already condensed divine fire. Qiuyu said. So fast, Lu Ming was rather speechless. Fortunately, Qiuyu cultivated the same divine technique as Lu Ming. Qiuyu, I've bought some divine-grade divine skills and techniques. Take 2 of them and cultivate them. After you've cultivated them, merge the divine-grade divine power with similar attributes into the divine-grade divine power. Lu Ming took out a few divine-grade techniques and passed them to Qiuyu. Divine-grade divine art. Qiuyu's eyes lit up and she took the 2. After that, Lu Ming returned to his room and took out a divine technique, the divine tying technique, and started to flip through it. It was indeed difficult to cultivate a divine-grade mystical technique. However, Lu Ming already had a lot of experience. In addition, his comprehension had improved a lot on Star Peak. It was not too difficult to cultivate it. A few months later, Lu Ming had cultivated the first stage of the tying divine technique and successfully cultivated a wisp of tying divine energy. After that, Lu Ming switched to cultivating the Universe Thousand Tao scripture and continued to strengthen this wisp of tying divine energy until he cultivated a divine fire. Just like that, a year passed. When the divine energy was strong enough, another divine fire was ignited in Lu Ming's dantian. This was the divine fire of tying. This was also because the cultivation environment in the Star Sky camp was too good. If it were anywhere else, it wouldn't be as fast. Now, I can merge the ice divine power and the extreme cold divine power into the moon divine power. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. He began to control the 2 divine flames and fuse them with the divine moon fire. Their attributes were similar, and the level of the divine moon fire was higher, so it was relatively easy to merge them. After a few months, the ice divine power and the ultimate cold divine power had completely merged into the divine moon fire. The divine moon fire had grown a lot stronger, but it was still far from the divine fire condensed by the ruler's divine power and the inextinguishable sword force. It would take time for it to grow. In this way, there were only 9 divine flames left in Lu Ming's dantian. I wonder how Qiuyu's cultivation is going. Let's go and take a look. Lu Ming walked out of the room and happened to see Qiuyu in the courtyard, cultivating a divine skill. Qiuyu stopped cultivating when she noticed Lu Ming. Qiuyue, how's your cultivation of the 2 divine-grade divine arts? Lu Ming asked with a smile. I finished cultivating a few months ago. Qiuyu said. What? You finished cultivating? Has the divine flame fusion been completed? Lu Ming was shocked. Yeah, it's done. Qiuyu said. Lu Ming had suffered a huge blow. He had been cultivating non-stop and had only managed to cultivate 1 of them. However, Qiuyu had already cultivated 2 of them. This was really a blow to him. Qiu, take these and cultivate. Lu Ming gave the remaining 3 divine techniques to Qiu, and Qiu returned the 2 that she had finished cultivating. The 2 of them chatted for a while before returning to their respective rooms to continue cultivating. Time passed quickly. It had been 10 years since Lu Ming came to the space camp. During this period of time, Lu Ming had successfully cultivated all the divine-grade divine skills and wondrous techniques. He had completely fused all the divine powers with similar attributes. Now, there were only 9 divine fires and 9 types of divine power left in Lu Ming's Dantian. 7 of them were divine-grade divine power. They were the Ruler Divine Power, Inextinguishable Sword Power, Sun Divine Power, Moon Divine Power, Sky Profound Divine Power, Annihilating Wind Divine Power, and Sky Evil Divine Power. There was also a Sacred Grade Divine Power, the Multi-Eye Divine Power, and a King Grade Divine Power, the Golden Dragon Divine Power. Of course, out of the 7 types of Divine Grade Divine Power, only the Ruler's Divine Power and Inextinguishable Sword Force were in a full state. They were at the 4th level Celestial Deity realm. The other 5 divine-grade divine powers were only at the level of a 1st-level celestial deity. They were still far from full. Although the sacred and king-grade divine powers were full before the fusion, they were far from full once they were converted to divine-grade divine power. However, even so, Lu Ming's overall combat strength had improved. After all, they were all divine-grade divine powers. Each of them was extremely powerful. If all his divine energy was full, Lu Ming's combat strength would increase dramatically. By then, even if his cultivation did not improve, he would be able to crush a heaven's favorite like Leng Ying. And NBSP, however, it was also very difficult to cultivate 5 types of divine-grade divine power to a full state. For example, a person would need a long time to advance from the 1st level to the 4th level celestial deity. Moreover, Lu Ming was equivalent to 5 people. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2987 Star Moon Ancient City. The Universe Thousand Tao Scripture had its pros and cons. He controlled many types of divine-grade divine power and was indeed very powerful. However, the resources and time he needed to cultivate were much more than others. It's a pity that the refining speed of the star core is too slow. If the energy of the star core were to pour in, I would be able to cultivate the 5 types of divine-grade divine power to a full state very quickly. Lu Ming muttered. Hey kid, are you blaming this old lady for refining too slowly? Lu Ming's words were heard by the measure formula and it immediately cried out. I don't. Lu Ming quickly denied it. Brat, it's all because your cultivation base is too weak. Too weak, do you understand? He's simply weak to the point of dregs. Heavenly God realm, hee. The quantity formula sneered. Its resentment was shockingly great. Lu Ming's face was covered in cold sweat. The quantity formula mumbled again, all of them criticizing Lu Ming. After a long while he stopped. Kid, let me tell you. It's not impossible to quickly refine the energy in the core of a star. After he finished criticizing, the tone of the measure character suddenly changed. What is it? Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Without the help of the energy from the star core, Lu Ming would need at least tens of thousands of years to cultivate all 5 types of divine powers to the maximum even if he was on the star peak. After tens of thousands of years, even daylilies would have turned cold. It's very simple. The core of a star is extremely young and strong. If you can find an object of extreme yin and extreme cold for me to absorb and fuse with yin and yang, I can quickly refine the core of a star into energy. The quantity formula said. Extreme yin and extreme cold? Then does the cold moonstone count? Lu Ming said. No, the cold moonstone's grade is too low. The ball of cold liquid in your 9th ice chain can do it. The quantity formula said. That liquid. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. However, he had already refined it and turned it into a divine power. It would definitely not work. Then Lu Ming thought of the treasure of the Ice Soul clan, the Ice Jade Heart. However, the Ice Jade Cold Heart was the clan treasure of the Ice Soul clan. It was impossible for him to refine and absorb it. Let's go take a look at the Star Sky Camp market. Lu Ming muttered and left the room, heading to the market of the Star Sky Camp. Unfortunately, even though some cold attribute treasures were discovered in the market of the Universal Camp, they did not meet the requirements. One had to know that it was the core of a star. It was very difficult to find an item of extreme cold that matched it. For the next few days, Lu Ming went in and out of the city square. Unfortunately, he did not gain anything. Lu Ming could only rely on himself to cultivate slowly. Lu Ming cultivated the Heaven and Earth Thousand Dao scripture to accumulate divine power while he cultivated various divine skills. He discovered that the complete version of the 9 heavenly Kunping technique was even more profound than the incomplete version. This was especially so after the 7th level. It was simply a whole lot more profound. After cultivating it, it really had the power of the Kunping, which could spread its wings and fly 100,000 miles. Lu Ming, come out and fight me. On this day, Lu Ming was cultivating when he suddenly heard a loud roar from outside. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. He extended his spiritual senses and found a young man standing in midair with a sharp gaze. Lu Ming had never seen this young man before. It seems like the Jin and Qin families can't hold back anymore. Lu Ming pondered and then said, I won't fight until 50 years have passed. Lu Ming rejected her very directly. Lu Ming, what kind of prodigy are you? You only know how to hide and don't even dare to accept the challenge. I think you should just get out of the universal camp. The young man shouted coldly, his voice filled with disdain. Oh really? Fine, suppress your cultivation to the same level as mine and I'll fight you. Lu Ming's voice was heard. The young man snorted coldly and did not reply. Why aren't you talking? You don't even dare to accept a battle at the same level? What kind of heaven's favorite are you? You only know how to hide like a turtle. I think you should get out of the universal camp. Lu Ming's disdainful voice was heard. You. The young man was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Lu Ming had returned his words to him word for word. In the end, the young man could only leave in dejection. However, in less than a month, another young man came to challenge Lu Ming. He was provoking and slandering Lu Ming in various ways. However, Lu Ming always said nonchalantly, Do you dare to fight me at the same level? After that, those people left dejectedly. Are these people really sent by the Jin and Qin families? Lu Ming had some doubts after being continuously challenged. If it was the Jin family or the Qin family, 1 or 2 challenges would be enough. But it had already been 4 or 5 times. Lu Ming could not help but recall the assassination attempt he had encountered on his way to the Star Sky camp. Then who sent them? Also, wasn't there the 9 absolute heavenly king mansions backing behind Magic City Mountain? How could it be destroyed by the Star Sky camp as a test for the new recruits? Could it be that the person who gave the test to the newcomers was the backer of Magic City Mountain? The other party wanted to destroy Magic City Mountain and destroy the evidence? This was still very possible. If that was the case, the Night Demon King would definitely have evidence. That was why Lu Ming was assassinated on his way to the Star Camp. And among the people who challenged him, it was possible that they were sent by the other party to kill him and take away the evidence in his hands? The more Lu Ming thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. However, it was impossible to check from the person who gave the test instructions to the newcomers. Lu Ming had already asked Wu Ming and Wu Yu about this. The person who gave the test was a normal elder of the universal camp. Obviously, the other party couldn't have given such an order personally. It would probably be difficult to find out through special means. Lu Ming's hand moved and the Night Demon King's storage ring appeared in his hand. If there was any evidence, it must be in the storage ring. However, Lu Ming did not find anything after flipping through it a few times. Watch it again. Lu Ming continued to flip through the pages. In the end, he still did not find anything. Clang, clang, clang. At this moment, the sound of a bell came from the Star Peak. What happened? Lu Ming was curious and walked out of the room with Chiu Yu. Star Moon Ancient City will open in 10 days. Those who wish to try their luck, please gather at the square at the foot of the mountain in 10 days. A voice came from the top of the Star Peak and spread throughout the entire Star Sky Camp area. Everyone could hear it. Star Moon Ancient City is about to open again. This time, I must go in. I must awaken the origin divine power factor. Haha, this is my chance. Instantly, the entire Universal Camp was in an uproar. Many of the senior members were excited. Star Moon Ancient City? What was that? Is it a historical site? Lu Ming and Chiu Yu were puzzled. Let's go ask Wu Ming and Wu Yu, Chiu Yu said. All right. Lu Ming nodded. Then he rose into the air with Chiu Yu and flew toward the foot of the mountain. Soon, the two of them arrived at the foot of the mountain, and a pungent smell wafted over. At this moment, the members of the Universal Camp at the foot of the mountain had also left the wooden house and were discussing the matter of Star Moon Ancient City. When they saw Lu Ming and Chiu Yu, each and every one of them had envious looks on their faces. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2988 Wormhole. One day, I'll also kill my way up there and fly in the open. Me too. Many people clenched their fists tightly and looked at Lu Ming enviously. Living on Star Peak without any stench and being able to fly freely had become the goal of these people. Lu Ming ignored these people. Very soon they found Wu Ming and Wu Yu. Brother Lu, Lady Chiyue, why are you here? Wu Ming and Wu Yu smiled. After not seeing each other for over a decade, Wu Ming and Wu Yu's cultivation had become much more exquisite. They were not far from 9th level celestial deity either. Brother Wu, I'd like to ask you something. What's the matter with Star Moon Ancient City? Lu Ming smiled. So it's because of Star Moon Ancient City. We don't know much about the details. We only know that Star Moon Ancient City is an ancient ruin. Legend has it that it was left behind from the beginning of the Heavenly Palace era. It contains all kinds of opportunities. It's said that every time someone goes there, they will gain something. There are even people who have successfully awakened the origin divine power factor inside. Wu Ming explained. As he said this, his eyes revealed a fiery radiance. The ruins left behind during the early days of the Heavenly Palace era. Lu Ming was also secretly shocked. Now, it was the later stage of the Heavenly Palace era, which was many years away from the beginning. I heard that there are all kinds of forbidden grounds inside that contain treasures, Wu Yu added. Oh, did anyone find a treasure of the cold attribute inside? Lu Ming asked. Yes. I heard that there's a forbidden area inside that has supreme cold treasures, Wu Yu said. Lu Ming's eyes lit up slightly. If he could obtain a cold attribute treasure in Star Moon Ancient City, it would greatly increase his cultivation speed. He had to go to Star Moon Ancient City. It was too slow to cultivate step by step. He could only improve faster by taking risks and experiencing. After chatting with Wu Ming and Wu Yu, Lu Ming and Qiu Yu returned to their residence. 10 days passed by in a flash. 10 days later, the square at the foot of the mountain was packed with people. Most of the elites from the Universal Camp were here. Of course, there was a limit to entering Star Moon Ancient City. Those above the Divine King Realm couldn't enter. Only the half-step Divine King Realm could enter. Lu Ming. Wu Ming and Wu Yu walked toward Lu Ming and Qiu Yu. There were a few young men and women following behind them. All of them had extraordinary auras. Wu Ming introduced the few young men and women. They were all the Wu clan's prodigies. They cultivated on Star Peak, and their cultivation bases were below the God King stage. The few of them greeted each other and could be considered to have gotten to know each other. They're here. Suddenly, someone spoke and looked in the direction of Star Peak. A beam of light flew over from the top of the Star Peak. It was a white-haired old man who stood in the air above the square. A vast and unfathomable aura emanated from his body, making it difficult to guess what his cultivation was. My name is Bai Li. You can call me Elder Bai. The white-haired elder said. Greetings, Elder Bai. Many people saluted. The experts in charge of the Universal Camp were all sent by the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion. They were the direct descendants of the 9 Absolute Heavenly King and did not belong to any aristocratic family. You all want to enter Star Moon Ancient City, right? First of all, I want to remind you that it's very dangerous to go to Star Moon Ancient City. You can lose your life at any time. You'd better think about it carefully. Bai Li warned seriously. However, no one made a sound. Of course, there would be danger in taking risks and searching for opportunities. If he didn't dare to go just because there was danger, then what was the point of cultivating? He would definitely be pulled further and further away from the other heaven's favorites. Bai Li was expressionless as he continued. Also, the most important thing is that it's not only the heaven's favorites from the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion who will enter Star Moon Ancient City. There are also other heaven's favorites from other Heavenly King Mansions. A total of 4 Heavenly King Mansions have the path to Star Moon Ancient City. They will also enter. Hearing this, many of the new members were shocked. On the other hand, the older members were not surprised as they had already known about it. The other members of the Heavenly King Manor will also enter. Many people murmured as their gazes turned serious. The Great Void Holy Dynasty was divided into territories. There were a total of 27 Heavenly Kings who guarded the territories. Each Heavenly King Mansion was like a country within a country, managing a large area of territory. However, these Heavenly Kings' residences did not live in harmony. Instead, they competed with each other and even attacked each other just like 2 different countries. Some of the Heavenly King Manors even had irreconcilable enmity between them, and they would kill each other as soon as they met. Therefore, if the other heaven's favorites from the Heavenly King Palace entered Star Moon Ancient City, the danger would increase greatly. Alright, that's all I have to say. Is there anyone else who wants to withdraw? It's not too late to withdraw now, Bai Li said. No one backed out. Alright, since no one is backing out, then follow me. It'll allow you to fly, Bai Li said before flying out of the universal camp. Everyone rose into the air and followed Bai Li. After flying for half an hour, they came to a hidden place. The space here was very strange. It seemed to be shrinking in one direction, and there was a dark hole in that direction. Then, could it be a wormhole? Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. Lu Ming had read about wormholes in some ancient books. Wormholes mostly appeared naturally after the universe was born. Wormholes were extremely mysterious. Different wormholes in the universe would connect with each other. After entering a wormhole, one could appear in another place in the universe. Perhaps, in an instant he would be transported from one star region to another. Wormholes and teleportation arrays were different. The teleportation formation was man-made. The teleportation was actually across the void, just like a void channel, which also required time. For example, teleportation across star fields would take a lot of time. However, wormholes weren't needed. In an instant they could enter other star fields or even further. Could it be that he had to pass through this wormhole to enter Star Moon Ancient City? Let's go. Bai Li was the first to fly forward and into the wormhole. In a flash, his figure disappeared. Then the old members followed and flew into the wormhole. Let's go too, one of the Wu family's youths said as he flew forward. Lu Ming, Qiuyu and the rest also entered the wormhole. As soon as he entered the wormhole, Lu Ming was enveloped by a strange energy. He seemed to see a passage in the void that led to the front. Then, in a flash, he disappeared completely. In the next moment, his body felt lighter and the force disappeared. Lu Ming realized that he was standing on a piece of land. Looking back, there was another wormhole behind them. This wormhole was connected to the wormhole in the Star Sky Camp. If they wanted to go back, they could directly enter this wormhole and return to the Star Sky Camp. Following that, Lu Ming sized up his surroundings. They were standing on a flat piece of land. In front of them was a majestic ancient city that stood between the sky and the earth. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. The four gates of heaven, earth, man, and dog. There was an ancient city that was extremely huge. It was like a primeval beast that lay on the ground. The city walls were so high that they pierced through the clouds. Looking from afar, it was impossible to tell how big this giant city was because the edge of the city walls could not be seen. It was as if they could only see one side of the city wall, but not the ends of the wall. Star Moon Ancient City? Everyone's heart moved. Let's go. Bai Li flew forward and the others followed closely behind. As they got closer and closer to the city wall, they realized how huge it was. The wall was ancient and filled with the aura of time. It was as if it had crossed time and space from the beginning of the universe. Soon they arrived at the foot of the city wall and found a city gate. No, to be precise, there were 4 doors. Behind the 4 doors, there was a common passage that led into the city. The 4 doors were all different. The door on the far left was the tallest and the most resplendent. It had a noble aura. The second door from the left was silver white and crystal clear. Although it was not as good as the first door, it was still pretty good. The third door was an ordinary-looking stone door. As for the 4th door, it could no longer be called a door. It was a hole that could only fit one person. You've all seen these 4 gates, right? If you want to enter Star Moon Ancient City, you must enter through these 4 gates. Bai Li pointed at the 4 doors. Can't we just fly in from the top of the city wall? A new member asked. Hee, if you're not afraid of death, you can try. An old member sneered. The new member's expression changed immediately. There's a powerful restriction on the city wall. Even if someone above the Divine King realm goes up, they'll die. Bai Li said indifferently, and everyone drew in a cold breath. Those above the God King realm would also die if they went up. That restriction was too terrifying. Then everyone's eyes turned to the 4 doors. Did these 4 doors have a reason? As expected, Bai Li continued his introduction. These 4 doors also have restrictions. Anyone above the God King level can't enter. Only those below the God King level can. These 4 gates, from left to right, are the Heaven Gate, Earth Gate, Human Gate, and Dog Gate. Bai Li paused for a moment. Heaven Sect, Earth Sect, Human Sect, Dog Sect? Everyone's eyes moved. As the name suggested, out of the 4 gates, the Heaven Gate was the most respected and the Dog Gate was the worst. Most of the people's gazes fell on the Heaven Gate. If he wanted to leave, he naturally had to go through the Heavenly Gate. However, no one noticed that many of the senior members had complicated expressions on their faces. Some of them even quietly stepped back, indicating that they would go first. Bai Li also smiled and said, "As the name suggests, the Heaven Gate is the most honorable, followed by the Earth Gate. But let me tell you, there is a terrifying restriction on the gate that can test one's talent. The more talented one is, the more they can pass through the honorable gate. If one is not talented enough and wants to pass through by force, they will be killed. Do you understand? You have to act within your means." A fatal disaster. Many of the new members revealed expressions of shock and doubt. They looked at the senior members, but most of them stepped back slightly as if they were asking him to go first. "It seems that this door is not easy to pass through," Lu Ming muttered. "If it was easy to leave, the old members would have already left. With my talent, I'll definitely pass through the Heaven Gate." At this time, a young man in black stepped out and walked directly toward the Sky Gate. His face was full of confidence. It was obvious that this person was very confident in his own talent. Bai Li's eyes flickered, but he did not stop him. Everyone's eyes fell on the black-clothed youth. The difference was that the new members were all curious, while the old members looked like they were watching a good show. Bang, bang. And NBSP, although the black-clothed youth was confident, he didn't dare to be careless. He circulated his divine power, and his entire body was covered in divine power. 9th level celestial deity. Many people could tell that the black-clothed youth's cultivation had reached the 9th level celestial deity realm. Every step he took was very cautious and he was always on guard. Finally, he stepped into the gate of heaven. However, there was nothing unusual. There was no reaction from the heaven's gate. The young man in black took a few more steps, and nothing unusual happened. The confidence on his face grew even stronger. "It seems that my talent is enough." The young man in black smiled and continued to walk. However, when he was halfway to the door, he suddenly stopped and stood there motionless. What's going on? Why is he not moving? Many people were puzzled. "The test has begun," Bai Li said. As soon as Bai Li's voice fell, he saw the black-clothed young man's body tremble violently. Then he let out a shrill scream and his body flew out of the heaven's gate. He fell heavily on the ground and remained motionless. There was no trace of life in his body. He was dead. The young man in black was dead. The crowd found a bloody mark between the eyebrows of the young man in black. This was a fatal wound. His soul had been destroyed. Many people gasped. They did not see how the young man in black had died. What had happened in the Heaven's Gate? Let me tell you, the 4 doors have nothing to do with one's cultivation level, only one's talent. If one's talent is not high enough, they will either die or be injured. You have to think carefully about which door to go through. Oh, I forgot to tell you. There won't be any obstructions to the last door. As long as one's cultivation level is below the God King realm, they can climb in, Bai Li said. It's impossible to climb in through the Dog Gate. With my talent, even if I can't go through the Heaven Gate, I can go through the Earth Gate. He'll go through the Earth Gate. Many people were discussing. Then a young man stepped out of the Earth Gate. The Earth Gate was different from the Heaven Gate. As soon as this young man stepped into the Earth Gate began to glow, and then rays of light shot towards this man. The man roared and used all his strength to block. However, he only managed to block a few moves before the light pierced through all his defenses and pierced through his body. He was torn to pieces and died on the spot. Another Heaven's favorite had died. All the new members had ugly expressions. One had to know that the talent of the Heaven's favorite just now was definitely not weak. How could the talent of someone who could control divine-grade divine power be weak? However, if he couldn't even pass the Earth's Gate, he would be dead. Even the Earth's Gate is so difficult? Damn it, did you all pass through the Human Gate before? A new member looked at the old members. He passed through the Human Gate? Some of the older members laughed. No way. Many people's hearts turned cold. Did he pass through the Dog Gate? A Heaven's favorite who could control divine-grade divine power passed through the Dog Gate? I don't believe that I can't even pass through the Human Gate. With a furious roar, another young man stepped out. This time he chose the Human Gate. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2991 Can only climb through the Dog Gate? A young man stepped out, his body exuding a powerful aura. His body was shrouded in divine power. Bang. Step by step, he carefully entered the Human Gate. Bus. The moment he stepped into the human gate trembled slightly and emitted a dazzling light. Then a divine light flew towards this person. Block it. The man roared and divine power exploded out. He pushed out with both hands and a ferocious beast pounced forward. Boom. The divine light struck the beast, causing a violent boom. The beast trembled violently. Block it, the young man roared and used all his strength. However, the next moment the beast exploded. The young man groaned and retreated. A wound appeared on his chest and it went straight through his bones. Again? The young man roared, his eyes filled with an unyielding look. He had to succeed. He had to enter through the human gate. Otherwise, if he wanted to enter Star Moon Ancient City and obtain the fortune, he had to enter through the dog gate. This was something that he found hard to accept. Bang. He had once again stepped into the human world. However, the human gate wouldn't show any mercy. It continued to glow, and a divine light blasted towards him. This time the young man's situation was even worse. His body was almost split apart and he was forced out of the gate and heavily fell to the ground. His aura was weak, but he managed to keep his life. A young man who was familiar with him gave him a divine pill to heal his injuries. I'm telling you, if you can't do it, don't force yourself. Be careful not to lose your lives here. Bailey said coldly. Many people's faces turned ugly. Did they really have to enter through the dog gate? They'll try. Then another new member stepped through the human gate. However, this person was sent flying out of the human gate like the previous one, but his injuries were lighter. Those without talent better not come forward. Obediently leave through the dog gate in case you get injured. An old member said with a smile. That's right. I wonder how many of the new members will pass through the dog gate. Ah. Another senior member laughed in disdain. I'll do it. At this time a cold voice was heard, and a young man in a blood-red robe stepped out. Lu Ming recognized the man. He was Wu Shui's senior brother. It's him. Many of the new members' eyes lit up. The blood-robed young man was definitely the best among this batch of new members. If he could not enter through the human gate, then most of the new members would probably enter through the dog gate. The blood-robed young man's face was cold, and his body was covered in blood-red divine power. Step by step he stepped into the human gate. Just like before, when the blood-robed young man stepped through the human gate lit up. A divine light shot towards the blood-robed young man. Blood pool abyss. The blood-robed young man roared and pushed his hands out. In front of him, a deep abyss appeared. In the abyss, there was a blood-red mist rolling, giving off a terrifying aura. The abyss spread forward and enveloped the divine light from the human gate. Boom, boom, boom. Within the abyss, there were loud rumbles and constant quakes, as if it was going to explode at any moment. And NBSB stop. The blood-robed youth shouted, his divine power constantly circulating. The veins on his face bulged as he tried to stabilize the blood pool. Slowly, the quaking in the abyss slowed down and finally disappeared. Oh. The blood-robed young man let out a long breath and looked overjoyed. He took a deep breath and continued to step forward. After that, the human gate was very stable. There was nothing unusual. The blood-robed young man passed through the human gate smoothly and came to the common passage behind the 4 doors. Passed. Many of the new members were overjoyed. Finally, someone passed. As long as they passed, it meant that it was not an impossible task. The power will be different as the cultivation level changes. Lu Ming pondered. Through his observation just now, Lu Ming discovered that the cultivation levels of the previous batches of people who entered the human gate were different. However, the power that erupted from the human gate would also be different. The higher one's cultivation, the stronger the power. No wonder Bailey said that the test of the 4 doors had nothing to do with cultivation but with talent. This gate could test one's talent. After the blood-robed young man passed through the passageway, he did not immediately enter Star Moon Ancient City. Instead he stood there and watched. He wanted to see who would be able to pass through the Earth Gate and if anyone would be able to pass through the Sky Gate. Following that, more and more people stepped forward. However, they were all new members. The old members had no intention of making a move and were just watching from the side. Most of the new members had chosen the human sect. Some people failed while others succeeded. Lu Ming realized that less than half of the people could pass through the human gate. Most of them had failed. Those who had failed walked to the side dejectedly, not planning to pass through the dog door immediately. Even if he wanted to pass through the dog gate, he had to wait until the end. With so many people watching, how embarrassing would that be? Bang. Right at this moment, A figure stepped out, attracting everyone's attention. This was because this person was not stepping toward the human gate but the earth gate. Jin Xing. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. The person who stepped into the earth's gate was Jin Xing. It's him, Jin Xing of the Jin family. The others also recognized Jin Xing. It said that Jin Xing is one of the 4 most outstanding members of the Jin family's younger generation. Although he's young, his talent is extremely terrifying. That's right. The Jin family is amazing. There are many geniuses, especially in this generation. There are 4 terrifying heaven's favorites. Each one is more monstrous than the last. I wonder if Jin Xing will be able to pass through the earth gate. Many people were discussing this. The Jin family was one of the top families in the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion. They were very powerful. Everyone's eyes fell on Jin Xing. Jin Xing's entire body was covered in golden light, making him look like a man of gold. 7th level celestial deity. Back then, in the Qin heaven starfield, Jin Xing's cultivation level was at the 6th level heavenly deity. Now he had reached the 7th level heavenly deity. Thump. Finally he stepped into the earth gate. The earth gate trembled slightly. Then a bright light filled the air. A few beams of divine light shot towards Jin Xing. There was only 1 divine light in the human gate, while there were 3 in the earth gate, and the light seemed to be more resplendent. Void severing hand. Jin Xing roared. Both of his palms turned golden and he struck out continuously. A terrifying whistling sound erupted in the air. The power of the void-breaking hand was extremely shocking. It collided with the 3 beams of light from the earth's gate. Thump, thump, thump. With 3 terrifying explosions, the void exploded, and the force spread in all directions. Jin Xing's entire body was golden, and it was extremely dazzling. Did you block it? Many people's hearts were in their throats as they watched with wide eyes. The next moment, the light dimmed. Everyone saw Jin Xing standing upright on the earth gate, uninjured. I blocked it. Someone exclaimed. He can pass through the earth gate. This time, even many of the older members were surprised. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2991 Gold Ingot. As one of the 4 heroes of the Jin clan, he is indeed extraordinary. Many people sighed. This time, there's another one of the 4 heroes of Jin family. I heard that he has already reached the half-step divine king realm. I wonder which door he will pass through. It's Gold Ingot. Gold Ingot has already been to Star Moon Ancient City once. Last time he entered through the Earth Gate. This time he's most likely going to charge at the Heaven Gate. I'm looking forward to it. Many people were discussing and looking at the other golden-robed young man. The young man was tall and sturdy. He was Jin Yuan, one of the 4 heroes of the Jin clan. The 4 heroes of the Jin clan were not ranked according to their cultivation, but by their talent. In terms of cultivation, there were many people in the younger generation of the Jin family who were above Jin Xing. Jin Yuan placed his hands behind his back. He obviously didn't plan to attack now. Bang, bang. After Jin Xing blocked a wave of attacks from the Earth's Gate, there were no more abnormalities on the Earth's Gate. He continued to move forward and stepped into the passage behind the gate. However, he did not enter Star Moon Ancient City through the passageway. Instead, he stood there and watched. In fact, among the people who had passed through the gate, almost none of them had entered Star Moon Ancient City. They were all standing in the passageway to watch. This time, they would be able to stay in Star Moon Ancient City for 10 years. They had plenty of time, so they were not in a hurry. You old members are still not moving? Let me see if your potential has improved after so many years. At this time, Bai Li spoke and looked at the old members. Talent was not always the same. Generally speaking, one's talent was determined by the heavens, but in fact it was not necessarily so. In the world, there were some rare treasures that could increase one's potential and accumulate more potential. Some treasures could even increase one's comprehension. Lu Ming's comprehension had improved when he participated in the War of Transportation in the Divine Wilderness continent. The most important thing was Shin power. The talents of those who controlled divine-grade divine power could also be improved as their degree of awakening of divine power increased. Just think about it, those primitive gods that were born at the beginning of the universe had such terrifying talents. Within the divine-grade divine power, there were traces of primitive gods. When divine power was awakened, the cultivator's innate talent would also increase greatly. So, just because he couldn't last time didn't mean he couldn't now. He couldn't pass through the human gate last time, but that didn't mean he couldn't do it now. Bailey wanted to see how much progress those old members had made. "I'll do it." As soon as Bailey finished speaking, an old member stepped out. This person released his aura and was a 9th-level celestial deity. He walked towards the human gate with a solemn expression. The last time he came here he didn't pass through the human gate. He had to climb through the dog gate in humiliation. This time he must pass through the human gate. Bang! He stepped into the human gate and instantly the human gate lit up, and a divine light slashed at him. He let out an angry roar and tried his best to block the divine light. In the end he was severely injured and coughed up a large amount of blood. However, he managed to block it and the divine light was destroyed by him. "Haha, I passed." The young man laughed wildly and stepped into the passage, his face full of excitement. He had not passed the last time. This time he had cultivated hard. The degree of Shin power awakening had increased and he had finally passed through the human gate. The eyes of many old members lit up as they saw hope. "I'll do it." Immediately, another old member walked towards the human gate. This senior member had also failed to pass through the human gate last time. He had entered through the dog gate. When he saw the young man in front of him pass through the human gate, his confidence was greatly boosted. However, when he stepped through the human gate and was attacked, he let out a blood-curdling screech and was sent flying out. He was severely injured. He had failed. "Damn it." This person roared angrily, extremely unwilling. He had passed through the dog's gate last time, and this time he had to pass through the dog's gate again. His face was burning. After all, it wasn't that easy to improve one's talent. The young man who had been the first to go up had been very confident. As for the person behind him, although his cultivation had improved, his talent had not improved. Of course he had failed. The remaining people's faces turned grave. Then more and more people came forward. However, compared to the new members, the old members had a much higher chance of success. More than half of them passed through the human gate. Of course, those who didn't pass through the human gate had extremely ugly expressions. Some of the older members had even started to attack the Earth's gate and many of them had succeeded. These successful people had all awakened their divine power to a high degree. They had reached 80% to 90% and were about to awaken the origin divine power factor. "Look, Gold Ingot is going to make a move." Suddenly, a voice rang out, causing everyone's hearts to tremble. As expected, Jin Yuan moved. Step by step, he walked toward the 4 doors. Which gate is he going to choose? Earth or heaven? Someone murmured and everyone started to guess. He chose the heaven's gate. Someone exclaimed because Jin Yuan's figure was walking toward the heaven gate. Many people's eyes were filled with anticipation. This time, there was already a person who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth who had entered the heavenly gate. Other than being killed in the end, no one else had entered the heavenly gate. Gold Ingot, can you succeed? Last time Jin Yuan had stepped through the earth gate. As he neared the heaven's gate, a bright golden light appeared on Jin Yuan's body. Layers of golden divine power enveloped him, and an ancient aura emanated from his body. Origin divine power factor. Bailey exclaimed in a low voice and his eyes suddenly lit up. What? Origin divine power factor? Jin Yuan has awakened the origin divine power factor? So terrifying. He can awaken the origin divine power factor at the half-step divine king realm. No wonder he is one of the 4 heroes of the Jin family. Many people exclaimed. It was very difficult to awaken the origin divine power factor. Even geniuses had to enter the divine king realm before they could awaken the origin divine power factor. On the other hand, the majority of people might not even be able to awaken the divine power factor even if they became god kings. There were very few people below the god king level who could awaken the origin divine power factor. Every single one of them was a genius among geniuses. Jin Yuan was one of those people. The last time he came to Star Moon Ancient City, Jin Yuan had yet to awaken the origin divine power factor. This time he has successfully awakened the origin divine power factor. His talent has increased greatly, and it is very likely that he will pass through the heaven's gate. Some people were discussing. Meanwhile, Jin Yuan had already stepped into the heavenly gate. The heaven gate, earth gate and human gate were all different. The front section of the heaven's gate didn't have any abnormalities. When Jin Yuan was halfway there, he suddenly stopped and started to move. It began. Everyone knew that the heaven's gate's assessment had just begun. Everyone held their breath and watched quietly. They were guessing whether Gold Ingot could pass through the heavenly gate. Every time they came to Star Moon Ancient City, there were very few people who could pass through the heaven gate. Sometimes not even one person could pass through. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Autumn moon crossing the heaven gate. Time passed by slowly. After 15 minutes, Jinyuan's body finally trembled. Many people's hearts skipped a beat. Would gold ingot be able to pass? The next moment, everyone knew the answer. A powerful aura burst out of Jinyuan's body. He stood straight and didn't retreat, but his face was a little pale. He stepped forward and continued to walk inside. He passed, he really passed through the heaven gate. That's amazing. Jinyuan, who entered Star Moon Ancient City this time, is probably one of the strongest heaven's favorites. Indeed. A half-step Divine King has awakened the Origin Divine Power Factor. He is almost invincible under the Divine King realm. Many people looked at Jinyuan with deep fear. As half-step Divine Kings, those who had not awakened the Origin Divine Power Factor would probably not be able to take a single blow from Jinyuan if they did not have terrifying secret techniques. In the end, Jinyuan stepped into the passage and turned to look in their direction. He also wanted to see if there was anyone else who could pass through the heavenly gate. Gold ingot, you've got some skills. Let me give it a try. At this moment, another young man stepped out. This young man was wearing an animal skin coat and had the appearance of a nouveau riche. However, no one dared to underestimate this person. This was because the aura that this person exuded was also extremely terrifying. It was filled with an ancient aura, which was quite similar to the aura that Jinyuan exuded. Origin Divine Power Factor. Many people were shocked. This person was also a peerless genius who had awakened the origin of divine power. This was because the origin divine power was the divine power controlled by the original gods. It was ancient, and once the origin divine power factor was awakened, it would naturally emit an ancient and desolate aura. This time, two people had actually awakened the origin divine power factor. This person was very direct and also stepped into the heavenly gate. He stopped halfway and woke up a moment later. He had successfully passed through the heavenly gate in the same time as Jin Xing. Their gazes collided and sparks flew. However, everyone's shock did not stop. That was because two more heaven's favorites stepped out and walked towards the heaven gate. They passed. They had all awakened the origin divine power factor. This batch isn't bad. There are actually 4 people below the God King level who have awakened the origin divine power factor. Bailey smiled. Those who were able to awaken the origin divine power factor while still below the God King level had a limitless future. Brother Lu, well, go too. Wu Ming and Wu Yu said. Then they went up with the other Wu family's supreme talents. As a result, Wu Ming and Wu Yu finally passed through the human gate despite their injuries. As for the Wu family, one of their elites had passed the earth gate. Chiyu, let's go too. Which door do you want to go through? Lu Ming asked Chiyu. Young master, I want to try the heaven's gate. Chiyu blinked her eyes and looked at the heaven's gate curiously. Then let's try. Lu Ming smiled. Although the heaven's gate was dangerous, he believed in Chiyu. If Jinyuan and the others could pass, he didn't believe that Chiyu couldn't. Although Chiyu had not awakened the origin divine power factor, she had awakened the 9 orifice Saint Heart. He was only at the first heaven, and his talent could not be compared to the 9 orifice Saint Heart. Young master, I'll go over and wait for you. Chiyu smiled and floated out. What a beautiful woman. Many people's eyes lit up when they saw Chiyu. However, in the next moment, everyone's eyes widened. Chiyu was actually walking towards the heaven gate. You want to enter the heavenly gate? Someone exclaimed and stuttered. Even Wu Ming, Wu Yu and the others were shocked. Lady Chiyu, you can't. This gate is extremely dangerous. Wu Ming could not help but call out. That's right, young lady. This is not a joke. It's life-threatening. We have to be careful. The others also chimed in. Chiyu was so beautiful, it would be a pity if she died. Thank you, but I want to try. Chiyu smiled and continued to walk into the heaven gate. An aura emanated from her body. 2nd level celestial deity. Her cultivation is only at the 2nd level celestial deity realm. With such a low cultivation, it's impossible to awaken the origin divine power factor. What a pity, what a pity. Many people sighed. They thought that Chiyu was most likely going to die. Soon, Chiyu arrived at the center of the heaven gate and stopped. Everyone watched with rapt attention. Although many people thought that it was impossible for Chiyu to pass, they still hoped that she would pass. After all, it was a pity for such a beautiful woman to die here. Time slowly passed by. About 5 minutes passed. Look, she's moving. How is it? That's not right. Someone exclaimed. At this moment Chiu moved. However, she was not blasted out as expected. Instead, she stood there steadily. Did he pass? That's impossible, right? However, at the next moment, they had no choice but to accept this fact because Chiu turned around and smiled at Lu Ming. She said, "Young master, I'll head over first." With that, he floated forward and landed on the passage. He really passed? How was this possible? A second-level heavenly deity who had not awakened the origin divine power factor was actually able to pass through the heavenly gates. How terrifying was his talent! Many young men's eyes were burning with desire. With such talent and beauty, many people's hearts began to burn. If he could get such a beauty to be his wife, how cool would that be? Wait a minute. Following that, many people's gazes could not help but land on Lu Ming. Just now, Chiu had addressed Lu Ming as young master. Such a beautiful and talented person was actually someone else's maidservant. This brat, what capabilities does he have? Humph, I'll have to find a chance to warn this kid. Many people snorted coldly in their hearts and began to think of some ideas. Lu Ming naturally noticed these gazes, but he ignored them and said, "Chiu, I'll be right there." With that, Lu Ming stepped out. The door he was walking towards was naturally the Heaven's Gate. What? This kid also used the Heavenly Gate? It can't be. Does he think it's that easy to get to the Heaven's Gate? I don't believe that he can pass through the Heaven's Gate. Many people murmured and glared at Lu Ming. Many people could tell that his cultivation was at the 4th level of the celestial deity realm. It was already a miracle that Chiu could pass the test. They did not believe that Lu Ming could pass it too. Everyone's eyes were on Lu Ming. This included Jin Xing, Jin Yuan, and some of the Qin clan's geniuses. I hope this kid dies in the Heaven's Gate. One of the Qin clan's elites sneered. If Lu Ming had died in the Sky Gate, they would not have to take action. Bai Li's gaze also fell on Lu Ming. He was extremely curious. He was already very surprised when Chiu passed the Sky Gate. Could Lu Ming pass it? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.